Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 571, Wonder Woman 1984. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm Sean Leland, drnorge, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Jim, the sensei of the whatnot Segulin.
How's it going, eh?
Jim, on this episode, actually, I want to kick off by starting off. Let's dedicate this episode to your mom, and I'm very sorry for the loss. I've mentioned it on the website and in the show Facebook group, and I didn't want to save this for the end of the show. I felt like it's something we should start off the show with. I just want to express sincere condolences. Your mom was an amazing lady. It's one of the reasons why we've been on hiatus for a while, as people may or may not know, depending on whether or not they go to our website. But I want to give sincere condolences because you've mentioned her so many times on the show that I do feel like our listening audience have gotten to know her through your stories over the years. So I feel like it's something we really should mention here. And I just want to express again my condolences. And as we enjoyed this episode, I want to dedicate it to your mom, who was just a special lady.
Yeah, and she loved the fact that I did this. She always was, well, my mom, but the people who've never met her, she 4'6" powerhouse of love and energy, and that was my mom. She understood, my comic book obsession. She understood, my talking about this. When the show first started, she was like right there as I'm telling her all the different stuff we're talking about, and I constantly would fill her in on different story arcs that are going on or things we're going to do on the show. And she's always the reader. She was always the one who understood. And like with I know your mom also was one of the people who encouraged you on your comic book reading and your kind of stuff. So it's like, this was something that, I kind of shared with mom. A lot of the weird spoiler warnings I would do, I would sing them to mom before actually you guys got to hear them. And those, she enjoyed hearing those kind of stuff that I did, and it's just one of those things that, this show is she's very much a part of the show. And part of the reason I do this and part of the reason I enjoy doing this is because I also like talking to mom about the comics. So this has been part of the healing process for me, getting back to being able to enjoy something I love, because you sit there and you think you shouldn't have any joy in your life now because she's gone. And that's not mom. Mom was about joy, love, happiness. She was about that energy. She was about that positiveness. And the fact that I can once again read a book and enjoy it. I can once again watch a movie and enjoy it, and knowing, it's okay. It's okay to be happy. It's okay to enjoy life. And that's the kind of stories and I can kind of hear mom just saying, it's okay. Enjoy it. Enjoy what you're doing. Have fun. And that's so you keep laughing, you keep loving, you keep having fun, you keep remembering the people who you've lost. And that is the healing process. And so thank you everybody all the support I got. I got a lot of wonderful support, and there's a lot of outreaching and just thank you. I'll never be able to thank everybody one-on-one or get to all the people who reached out. But thank you.
We are proud members of the Comics Podcast Network and the League of Comic Book Podcasts. Mr. Segulin, we are sponsored this episode, as always, by DCB Service and InStockTrades.com. What is going on over at DCBService.com?
They got something really cool going on now. Infinite Frontier #0, one shot. Basically, this is the DC universe that spun out after the Dark Knight's Death Metal. It's 50% off, which is awesome. 40% off variant covers if you like variant covers, which I do. So great deals. But also, we've got Joker #1. Again, 50% off or 40% off the variant covers. But this is, again, spun out of Infinite, the Infinite Frontier. It's the continuing of what's going on with the Joker now, and including as well as a little story of Punchline in there. So thank you, DCBS.
Over at InStockTrades.com, they have lots of deals, and the new release deals they've got are the 100 Bullets Omnibus Volume 1 hardcover, $150 regularly, 42% off, only $87. Batman the Chalice trade paperback, $19.99 regularly, 42% off, only $11.59. Birds of Prey, Hero Hunters, $29.99 regularly, 42% off, $17.39. I want to thank DCB Service and InStockTrades.com for continuing to support us and a wide variety of other podcasts. Mr. Segulin, what kind of a podcast are we?
Raging Bullets is a spoiler podcast. We go in-depth into plotline, story twists, and whatnot of Wonder Woman 1984. So if you haven't watched the movie, you want to watch the movie so you can better enjoy the show.
Let's talk Wonder Woman.
Can Batman escape? One hint, the worst is yet to come.
So Jim and I were talking, and actually brainstorming right before we were kicking off this episode, just about 2021 and how we're both like really motivated towards the podcast, and it's looking at this year and how we can evolve it and keep it moving forward and getting more content out to people. So as we were talking about it, one of the things I'm going to start doing regularly is I'm going to introduce like a sub-podcast within the podcast called Biting the Bullet. It's a blog that I used to do ages ago, and the idea behind it is quick hit episodes about books that we can't normally get to on the regular show. Be short, quick hits. Like, for example, the first one's going to be about Superman Shazam from DC Comics Presents. Old classic issue, but it's something where the premise is going to be, I'm going to tell you what the issue was about, tell you about the characters that were in it, who the creative team was on it, how it holds up, and who I think it'd be for now, as a way to point people towards some issues that, hey, you may have missed this. And it's going to be not just cult classic stuff, it'll be current stuff, things that we don't get to on the show, because through the course of the year, there's so many books that Jim and I want to talk about that we just don't get to. It's just a good, quick way to shout out material, old and new, that we haven't got to on the podcast. And sometimes there'll be solo episodes where I just do it as a quick blog hit. Sometimes there'll be episodes where Jim joins in. Jim can provide his own content for it when he wants to. It's something that'll be flexible. It's not in place in any way, shape, or form for the main Raging Bullets podcast. It's more of supplemental material, really just to give us a vehicle to talk about some things with greater frequency than we do now. So that's something that we've got coming. In that conversation, Jim and I started talking about just the current state of DC and just how excited we are about a lot of the stuff that we're reading. One of the things we haven't been able to, just because of time, we haven't been able to talk about is Future State. And we've both been diving into Future State, and we're at various places with it. Jim, Future State, what do you think of it so far? Like, what have you been able to get to? What do you think about this for it's 2 months, so it's January and February. This is what we're currently reading.
Yeah, so far I've only been able to read a couple of the issues, so I'm not heavy into having been able to get to everything because of life. Mm-hmm. But I've started reading it now, and I'm actually very excited about it, and I like it. It's more stories being told is always a good thing. For me, and we've got it didn't change the main universe. Because that was the thing we were talking when they first announced it. We're like, are they getting rid of this? No, this is just a possible. This is kind of like an Elseworld story, but it could be connected to the current continuity. It could be the future. It could be a different. And I like those stories. I think that's kind of a neat way to play it. That the stories matter. The stories mean something. But it's not, definitely written in stone. This is what you're going to see. So it was a really cool way for some creators to give us different stories, different takes, possible future stuff going on. I'm liking it, and I want to see some of that stuff play out. But I'm not losing my, Clark Kent, Bruce Wayne. I'm not losing my current DC continuity, but I'm getting hey, this is something we maybe get going on here. And I'm actually very excited for that. And I'm like, I want to see where that plays out. And, and I'm not, it was funny, you shared with me the solicitations for April. I'm normally not a guy who jumps on those things. Like, when it happens, I'll see it. I jumped on those because I wanted to see, okay, is there any playoff from Future State? I wanted to see some of that stuff. So it did get me interested in what's going to happen. So I think, it was a neat thing to go with. I want to see where it plays out, and I'm definitely looking forward to some of the stuff I haven't had a chance to read yet.
I also wanted to look at the April solicits just to get an idea of what books are canceled, what new books are they creating. It looks like in 2021, there's going to be a gradual introduction of new series, where they've pared back a lot of books. Like Robin's getting a solo series. Did you see that?
Yeah. Yes, I'm excited for him.
I'm very excited about that.
And if the cover art is any indication, he's not following the Robin appearance. He changed his costume around. And it's funny because is he going to still call himself Robin? Or is he going to go with some different name? But since the title of the book is Robin, I'm assuming he's going to continue on with the Robin name. But you never know with Damian, and that's kind of a neat thing.
I was like sitting here thinking, like, what do you think they called the book Dave? And it's going to be a guy named Gary.
Yeah. Hey.
No, I get your point, though. As far as what is obviously the main character is Damian, who we've known as Robin for whatever. So what is his status quo going to be? One of the things I really enjoy about this, and I'm being silly, but one of the things I really enjoy about this, and you and I both really were huge fans of the Tim Drake solo series. One of the things that series did so well is it took this kid who was growing into his own, and he developed into really a top-tier solo character, that his adventures were absolutely amazing. The book would cross over into Batman stories and was always like a pivotal issue that was involved in the Batman stories. It's a book that I miss and a concept that I miss. I'm hoping that we get that same thing from, that lightning will strike twice, and we'll get that same thing from the Damian book. Just because he's a character who you and I both, like, the love-hate relationship with him early on, trying to, because he was a little monster in the beginning.
He was awesome.
but I've grown to, like, love the various layers they've developed for this character along the way, and I'm hoping we get some serious exploration of who he is and where he's going now. So I'm excited for that book. I'm excited that we're going to start. I'm hoping that we start to see more titles develop. We'll talk next episode, I think, a little bit more about the solicits in a little bit more depth. Because unlike you, I don't always dive heavily into the solicits because sometimes I don't want to know what's coming, as far as story beats. But I do want to know series-wise what's coming. There's going to be a next Batman miniseries, too, which I guess that's another thing with Future State. As you've been reading, have you been finding yourself going, okay, they're going to be doing this for 2 months. There's certain elements of this I do want to see more of. Are you in that place? Is that where...
Yeah, I actually, again, I don't want to lose my traditional stories, but I wouldn't mind some of this stuff continuing. Because, again, it's a good story. If you give me a good story, I want to read more of it. It's that simple, I enjoy, my traditional, I enjoy, the current continuity. I want to see how, the current world is dealing with post the death metal, but I do want to see more of that future stuff. I do want to see those characters continuing on.
Yeah, I think that's the reason why Batman Beyond ended with issue 50. Batgirl ended with issue 50. I think Batman Beyond in particular, I think because of Future State ended with issue 50 to kind of, I think, say that this is our current look at the future, if that makes sense. Yeah. So I get kind of what they were doing there. I don't know that you needed to do that with the Elseworlds concept and the multiverse concept with DC myself, because I'm a huge fan of Batman Beyond, but I get what they were doing. Let's really show people that we're kind of embracing this idea of Future State, and let's do some miniseries surrounding that as we go forward. I'm fine with that. I think it's cool that this is story driven. And like anything story-driven, if it doesn't work out the way that they want to, you can always adjust the continuity. You can always tell new stories. We've dealt with that for the entirety of when we've been doing this podcast, and certainly comics have done that well before that. So I think that's something that's neat, that exploration of it. But I walked into this year really nervous about comics at DC. Not because of cancellations of books or things like that. You always hear, everything's about HBO Max. Everything's about HBO Max, which I think is great as far as additional comic content that these series that we're kicking off on the DC Universe app are going to have a new life on HBO Max. And I'm hoping that the DC stuff doesn't get pushed to, the background on HBO Max. I'm hoping that stuff has some legs. Wonder Woman 1984 success, I think, is probably fireworks shot up for the company in general and saying, hey, on this type of streaming platform, people will jump in and start watching this content when it's quality content and it's well produced. So, for things like the Snyder Cut, I'm hoping that does really well as far as streams. The people will watch it and that it shows in numbers. And that as these series start to come back, like Titans Season 3 and things like that, and we eventually get that people who maybe didn't see the first 2 seasons are jumping on board, starting to watch those, or binge watch them when Season 3 comes out, and they start to see numbers from that. Because that content only points back to the source. I guess where I don't know that we're ever going to get these companies that value comics now the same way that they do films and television, as far as what it produces for them. But from a creative aspect, if you aren't looking at this as your storytelling foundation, your storytelling source, and you don't realize that you need new stories that are more contemporary, it's the classic stuff gets adapted into today's modern television and film, but usually it's brought up to date as far as tone and storytelling to match today's sensibilities. You also need contemporary stories, though, that do that. You need the writers and creators that are taking these characters and making them relevant today, evolving them gradually. That's where you pull them from template-wise for movies and television. So I'm hoping that 2021 is the year where success on things like HBO Max, and I'm speaking for DC directly, not ignoring Disney and Marvel and things like that. Although, how can you not argue the success of WandaVision? Because that's a buzz right now. These things hopefully will point them back to the original source material and add some, okay, maybe I don't understand comics, but we need to support that this platform still exists and this platform still has the ability to flourish because this is our source material for this content. Because this year, 2021, Jim, when have we ever walked into a year knowing the amount of television content alone we are going to get that's comic book based? I'm talking about across all companies, across all streaming platforms. Everybody's got something that's been based off of not just a comic, but multiple comics.
Yep.
I mean, I dreamed of this stuff, never thought it would happen. You could right now create a 24-hour comic book network that isn't comic-based, but just constantly, without overlapping, is running comic book shows throughout history and would never have to, repeat. That's insane.
Yeah, you could actually, it's funny, as you're saying that, I'm like, yeah, you could pull that off easily. You could pull off its own network now.
Yeah.
We've got enough stuff out there, and it's new stuff that is still just even coming out. It's neat when you go to the HBO Max and you've got Wonder Woman ready to go. There's the more like this category. And you start looking down at the more like this. And there's, of course, Wonder Woman, Linda Carter, Wonder Woman, the Justice League stuff. But then they start going off, Birds of Prey, X-Men, Stargirl, Young Justice, Batwoman. All these different stuff that are just, if you like this, maybe give this a try. And that's the kind of stuff that's going to lead people. Like if you click on the Stargirl or the Batwoman, maybe that's going to lead you to the Titans, and then maybe lead you to Arrow and Flash and all the other different TV shows that are out there. I think this is something that could lead through the different types of related stuff, and who knows, maybe even get people back into comics. I don't know if we'll ever get a crossover from the movies and the TV shows back into the physical comics, but we definitely will get crossover between the similar media related stuff. We're going to see more of these TV shows get watched, and that's going to hopefully spark some more interest in this in this genre. And who knows? Maybe there will be crossover back, but it's the amount of content that's out there is actually staggering to me, because I was going through. I finally figured out how to get HBO Max working, because I was running into issues because I'm a technical idiot. I know that, but I was able to get it working. And as I'm looking, I'm diving into all the different stuff that's out there. I'm like, oh, that's kind of neat. I'm glad we can still watch the original Linda Carter Wonder Woman, and with the Snyder Cut. Has that dropped yet, or
No.
am I just an idiot and I can't find it?
No,
I couldn't find Snyder Cut.
It hasn't dropped yet.
Okay.
That's
Okay,
coming, I think, in a couple months.
Oh, okay.
I don't remember the exact date, but it's not. No, it's not. It's not a thing yet. And actually, I'll text you as soon as it does, just because I do think it's something we're going to want to talk about on here when it launches. Because I want to compare. I want to watch the Whedon cut and compare the two. Just realistically, what do we like better? You know, I mean, and I think it'd be fun to say, well, I like this take better in the Whedon cut. I like this take better in the Snyder cut. I think that's going to be a fun thing. It's going to be greatly expanded, though, because it's multiple episodes that it's spanning. So there's a lot of material that was cut, including, I know that there's a big Themyscira battle that was involved. You know, or I should say, there's a big Amazon battle. I don't know if it's on Themyscira, and I thought it was on Themyscira.
Nice.
That was involved in this whole thing. There's a lot of content. I've tried to dabble into when news articles are released about it, just to make sure that I'm in the know that it's coming. But I've been trying to stay away from hearing too much about the content, because I want to go in and enjoy it without knowing extras that are going to be in it. You know what I mean? Too many of the extras. I want to just go in and enjoy the experience of seeing it, be surprised by the differences between the two, and just enjoy the experience. I think Wonder Woman 84 has reaffirmed for me that I want to see the Snyder cut.
Yeah.
I know that Wonder Woman 84 wasn't a Snyder movie, but it is something that spun out of the Snyderverse. And I'm anxious to see the Snyder cut, just to see, because I liked Justice League quite a bit. So the idea of getting more of that movie and getting the original take on it, I do like when they do stuff like this. You can't do it for every movie, but I think when there's movies where there's significant differences between the two cuts, I always enjoy seeing that. So It is something that's very much on my radar, something I very much want to see, and something I'm hoping delivers an experience for me that just excites me. That's something that's neat. But this is stuff we're getting now because of streaming content. Before you had to be, if we think people are going to buy it, we'll make it. Now it's, if we think people will stream it, we will make it, which does open a different vehicle, a different avenue for us. This is something that I would have liked to have seen, though. Sort of. It looks like it's going to be long. So I was just going to say it's something I'd like to see on the big screen. I will put the caveat on it depending on how long it is.
Yeah.
I take it back. If it's phenomenal and it's 4 hours, I would sit through 4 hours to enjoy.
Yeah, I know. Come on.
To enjoy. Well, I did it with the Lord. Well, you know what I did it with? Lord of the Rings, the uncut versions of those. I love those movies. Every time I watch them, I watch the uncut version. And they're long movies, really long movies without all the content cut. So, I would do the same for this as long as the content supports it. I'm very curious to see how they deliver this.
Yeah.
It's going to be a cool thing. Did you watch at all Soul of the Dragon yet? Did you get a chance?
No, I haven't yet.
Okay. So I'm not going to spoil anything with that, but for anybody out there, Batman Soul of the Dragon is the newest animated feature. I loved it. I want to talk about it on the show. I do not want to ruin your experience, Jim, so I'm just going to leave it at that for right now. It's a 70s Batman Kung Fu movie. And,
nice.
And the nice part about it is it's really unique in comparison to some of the other ones that they've done. It's real stylish, and I really, really enjoyed the music, the whole experience, and where it took me. It embraces the idea of Elseworlds while remaining grounded. So if you haven't gotten this thing, check it out, because it's pretty cool and it's different. And I know it's going to... I don't know when the physical release is. I always grab it. I pre-order it on iTunes when it's going to come out, because I just like watching stuff on my Apple TV. So I just get this nice little email saying your purchase has arrived, and I'm pleasantly surprised. What I wanted to shout out here, though, is the next one, Justice Society of America, World War II. I am jonesing for this movie. It's the Flash goes back in time. I don't know how, but as the Flash does, winds up in World War II with the Justice Society. Wonder Woman leading the team.
Oh, cool.
And it's very much everybody is the classic Justice Society characters. This isn't some, different take on the Justice Society. Like, they go to their roots and their core. And it's, Our Man, it's Wildcat, it's Wonder Woman, it's it's everybody that you would want. Green Lantern, Jay Garrick, it's the people that you want to see off of this thing. I cannot be more excited when I was watching it to just see this movie play out. I'm a huge Justice Society fan, so the idea of this being a film that they're going to explore actually in World War II, I'm glad that they're going here.
Nice.
The animated releases were something I was not worried about in the sense that I think it's a different vehicle than everything else that they're doing. I've always been afraid with, the increased streaming services and TV and things like that we might lose the animated features. And we're not. We're actually going to get, and also I heard we're going to get more Young Justice on HBO Max, I think.
Yeah.
So we're getting a lot of DC content coming in 2021. I'm really excited for this year. And the solicits, to your point earlier, and I'll just end with this, the solicits were something I don't usually seek out. I am going to, for at least the initial part of this year, be looking at them a lot more heavily than I normally do. More for what new books are going to be released, what books are coming back, things like that, because I want to see more characters being, represented out there, because that's part of a shared universe. When you have all of these different characters, they flesh it out. They make it something neat. I was glad to see that some of this future state stuff, the next Batman is going to get a miniseries following up this. I want to see more. So go ahead and explore that, and let's see where it's going to be. I'm anxious to see what's coming from Black Label, because anytime something has that stamped on it, it's usually some really good content.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see what Black Label is going to be bringing in 2021. I'm also looking for the statue, Freddie Williams statue.
Yes.
It's supposed to be released this month. At least what it said on the website. Okay. And I haven't been able to see anywhere I can pre-order it. But that's something, a friend of the show, Freddie Williams II, did this really cool Batman statue of the Batman Black and White series. And I'm shouting out because I'm stoked to grab it. I'm just waiting for release info. I'm hoping that it was the last one listed on that lineup for this time around. And I'm hoping to see some form of solicitation for it to grab it, because I want that for my collection. So it's
oh yeah,
the Batman Black and White series, and honestly the whole DC statue line has been phenomenal. So they're really quality pieces that I like having on display, because people ask about them, because they're all unique, they're all different. Whether they're comic fans or not, they still appreciate the unique nature of the statues, because they're all really clever. And I'm excited and hoping that I get release information for that statue, because I think that the DC Direct line of like statues and things is something that they're phasing out. I think they've gone with outsourcing to other companies for that. I might be wrong on that, but I've noticed that I haven't seen solicits for those. So I'm hoping at least the things that they've previously announced come to fruition, and that we get them this year. So that's kind of what I'm looking for at the moment. So without further ado, Jim, why don't we go in and talk what we're really here for today, Wonder Woman 1984.
Holy coal in a donut!
All right, Jim, so we're going to be talking this episode about Wonder Woman 1984, and this is exciting because this was released in streaming, and it's a different sort of, especially in the COVID year where things are just strange and odd. This is the big release that we were looking for to see together. I was actually looking forward to meeting up with you and going to see this movie. What were your initial impressions of this film? How did you like watching it on a streaming service at home? What did that look like for you? Did you like this?
Yeah, I really liked the movie, and to be honest, I am excited for Wonder Woman 3. That's how much when this was done, I wanted more. And I'm like, yes, this was a good movie, and just as excited as I was after the first Wonder Woman, I am with this. And I would have loved to see this on the big screen. I would have loved to see this on the big, page, especially, some of these Themyscira scenes, just how massive and how awesome, just visually beautiful. Wherever they filmed this at was just something, incredible. And I would have loved to see that on the big screen. And so that's, something I do miss, but the home streaming is fine. I enjoyed this just as much as not as much as the theater. Theater would have been more funner. And yes, I know that's grammatically incorrect. I did that intentionally. But seriously though, it's in the theater would have been better, but I'm not feeling like I lost anything by only seeing this streaming through home. And I wish I been able to. I have technical issues, as I've said multiple times. So I was having a hard time getting it on my main TV downstairs. And I think I finally figured out how to do it. So maybe the next stuff I'll be able to actually watch on my big screen downstairs. But I'm watching it on my computer in my office. So it's, seeing movies this way for me is not that bad. I watch a lot of the comic book TV shows this way, because I get them through iTunes or I'm streaming them through the DC app. So it's, that kind of stuff that, I'm getting more adjusted to this way of watching movies. So it's, for me, I didn't lose anything.
Would this be something in a normal year? Like, let's say you watched it at home streaming. Would watching it at home streaming lead you to go see it in the theater?
Oh, definitely. If the world was better off and if everything was good to go, I would see this in a theater in a heartbeat. Just because some of these scenes where I'm looking at this going, man, this would have been awesome to see on the big screen.
Yep.
Again, the opening salvo in Themyscira, where this contest and all that stuff, I would have loved to see that on the big screen with the big surround sound and just the action going on. The roar of the crowd would have been awesome. Live in a large theater with big screen up there. Now you don't lose anything by the small screen and my own home sound, but it would have added that little bit, just kicked it up to 11 for me on my enjoyment of it.
The thing I love about the contest, and you're referencing it, is what a gorgeous sequence of events here.
Yeah.
This is something I would love to see on the big screen. We watched it in our basement, which we have, a 55-inch TV, but it's not the same as being in the movie theater and seeing it. My wife and I saw it, though, and she loved it. I mean, to the point afterwards, we did Christmas photos, and she tried to do a Wonder Woman pose, and it looked cool. I mean, it was like, I love that enthusiasm because my wife is somebody who is... she survives living with a superhero enthusiast.
Yeah.
But she really enjoyed this movie to the point that she was talking about it to people afterwards, which says a lot about the quality of this film, that wasn't me pushing it. That was her just enjoying the experience. This is a film that has mass appeal. And I think that's a key with these properties. You talk about how to get people interested in comic books, how to get people interested in the characters. It's when you take a look at these properties and you deliver something that has the unique appeal to get nerdy and geeky for us, because we want those small moments where we're like, ooh, they put that in. That is so cool. While at the same time not losing the core of what makes these characters mass appealing. This contest being about not just about skill and strength, but being about character and code. Because that's something that I think in the Amazons, it isn't just about them being the strongest and the best fighters. That's a huge part of who they are. But there is a strong moral code and way that they are supposed to carry themselves and develop that they're looking for in their greatest fighters and leaders. And I loved watching not only the participants in the contest, Diana and all the participants, but Robin Wright's character, as she's analyzing this, the Queen, as she's watching this, their reactions to it. I mean, talk about great acting. Their reactions added to this sense of how the scope and scale of this thing. This beach sequence right now, they're swimming up on the beach sequence onto the horses. And if you're watching along with us, we're on the beach sequence right now where they're riding the horses along. Diana has just gotten on the horse and she's going along. This is absolutely stunning.
Yeah.
And it's funny. One of the questions that Jeremy had on the Facebook group was, what did you all think of the soundtrack? To me, it was lackluster. And I kind of get what he's saying in the sense that this isn't one of those soundtracks where, I'll use Guardians of the Galaxy as an example. I had to have that soundtrack because of how good it was. The only thing I will say is the Hans Zimmer music in these type of sequences, I'm a big Hans Zimmer fan. I bought the Hans Zimmer soundtrack for this because, I'm going to poorly... I think it was Brian Deemer from Comic Geek Speak. It was definitely on Comic Geek Speak years ago, mentioned that he listened to, and if I'm attributing this to Brian wrongly, I apologize, but it was definitely on Comic Geek Speak. that they listen to instrumental, a lot of times superhero and comic book movies soundtracks when they read comics. I don't do this every time I read comics, and they weren't saying they did either, but I do it a lot now. And soundtracks like this, I love a lot of the Wonder Woman theming that has been done in multiple movies. So this movie had some different takes on some of that Hans Zimmer stuff that he did in the past, and I really enjoyed that. I like that music. So from a thematic tone, I really liked the instrumental soundtrack from this film. As far as the rest of the soundtrack, I think it did a good job of, this takes place in the 80s. I think it did a great job of encapsulating the fact that I felt like we were in the 80s in this film. So it did what it was supposed to do there. Is it one of those things where I was listening to the soundtrack and going, my gosh, I've got to rush out and go grab that? Yeah. No, that's not a thing. The Hans Zimmer stuff I grabbed because there's going to be certain tracks from it, like the Themyscira stuff. I love the soundtrack for this sequence, for this group of beats. And I love the stuff when Diana, like, they have theming specific to Diana. You know, it's that da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, you know, that thing that's in there. You know, yeah. And I'm poorly doing it, but I like that whole thing, and I liked that they did different riffs on it in this. So I wanted that, and so I bought the soundtrack for that reason. So those things did stand out for me. I don't know if I'd use the word lackluster myself. I'm not knocking Jeremy, because I tend to take that as I was disappointed by it. I wasn't disappointed by this soundtrack. It just wasn't one of those. I think it did exactly what it was supposed to do. And I didn't walk out with like going, geez, I need to own this song, that song, the other song from it. Except for the instrumental one. I really liked the instrumental one. But it was a good soundtrack for what it was supposed to do. It did what it was supposed to do, I guess, is my take on it. What about you, music-wise? Did you...
No, I'm nodding my head with you. There was some of the... For me, the music did have that great 80s feel to it, so I can see why anyone would say lackluster, because 80s music wasn't... I don't think the 80s was the greatest time of music. But to be honest, for me, it kind of felt good because that's part of my childhood. So it was kind of a neat moment. But some of that non-instrumental, that Diana, when she being her Wonder Woman moments, I was like, yeah, that's kind of cool. I dig that. So I tell you, as we're watching the ending of the race, the girl who plays young Diana, and it's the same actress from the first movie. They kept the same actress, which I was very happy with. I really liked her role that she did. Just the portrayal, everything, the raw emotion, her emotional moments that she has, just the youthful exuberance, just everything she was playing. I was like, she did a really good job with this. This is a young kid that, you got to keep an eye out for, for future stuff.
Sure. I like that she learned a lesson here, because here's the thing. One of the things I loved watching her journey, that she was clever. She didn't give up. And I wasn't surprised by that, but I loved at the end that they're like, you did not complete the contest. You were supposed to, along the way, be touching in at the checkpoints. You cheated. You zipped through. Now, I give her credit because she came across the race. And in the day and age, I think one of the biggest criticisms here nowadays is participation trophies and things like that. In this one, they're like, you're not the winner. And you should feel proud that, like, she prepared herself by doing this one for the next one. She may win the next one because of the fact that, she was so clever on this one that she'll bring that into the next one. But this teachable moment with her mom and with her aunt, I thought was so cool, because I did not know where the ending was going to go. I guess I assumed she was going to win, right? Because the movie's Wonder Woman. I liked that she didn't, because they're right. She did not complete all of the checkpoints. And it's like one of those auto PC or Xbox racing games where you miss the checkpoint and it's like, you're out of the race now. It doesn't. Yeah. But because I'm playing Forza Horizon right now, and it does that to you. If you don't, you're like, you've missed the checkpoint, and you can rewind the game. There's a rewind button where you can go back. Diana would have liked a rewind button here where she could go back and make sure she hits that checkpoint. But I loved the moment because what it showed. And I think this is where this sequence in the beginning is critical. You've got to know pretty quickly her foundational background. If you did not see the first movie, you can jump into Wonder Woman 1984. Or if, let's say, you only saw the first movie once and you haven't been a Wonder Woman fan, didn't know about the character. This sets the stage for, she is somebody that's out of time in 84. She has lived a long life. the history of her people is this. This is their code. They're very code-driven. You know, a nice little quick refresher in a great action sequence in the beginning. Max,
you start the movie hit off with a hammer.
Yep.
And I like that. You got to have that action. You got to have that moment that pulls you in right away. And they did that with this. And it wasn't a massive, big fight scene or something. It was that great moments. Then we go into modern day Wonder Woman, where you see again the modern day Wonder Woman. And he went from one action sequence to another action sequence, but neither one was over the top. It was just enough to give us glimpses, and I like that. And it was kind of like one of those cool moments where you're like, yeah, all right.
Well, and the modern day Wonder Woman, let's talk about that. So she is not a hero who is out in the open. This is an era in '84 in the DC movie universe where there aren't heroes running around publicly the way that we traditionally think of. So she's stepping out to save people, but like kind of going back into the shadows. And like the bride that she, like right now we're watching the sequence where she saved the bride. She just kicked the Trans Am out of the way before then. These are sequences where she is very, very careful about, I will come in, I will save people, I will never let somebody get hurt, but I do not want to be in the public eye. And she has Diana Prince as kind of her day-to-day persona, but has not given up. I miss arcades, man.
Yes,
it's really the arcade machines. I'm like, I hope post-COVID, like some of this stuff comes back because I miss this kind of stuff.
And it's funny just seeing everybody hanging out at the mall and just all that, going back to, when we could do that kind of stuff. And it's,
remember Video Concepts? Wait, like the TVs on, like the Max Lord TV. He's on TV in a place. Remember Video Concepts was a store back in the 80s.
Yes.
They did a great job of this, of like putting in the nice little tidbits for the 80s. See, I love the 80s. So it's funny when you were talking about the music. That is a point with the music. If you're not an 80s music fan, I am. You're not. There's no right or wrong to that. Music is very subjective and very personal. If you don't like 80s music, or if you're just kind of like, 80s music's okay, you're not going to be drawn to that whole sequence. They did a great job with these stores making it feel like when you and I in the 80s would have been walking through Euclid Square Mall. This very much had that, or Great Lakes Mall, or Richmond, any of those. Malls were a big part of the culture. And we're in an era right now where malls still exist, but they're closing. And they're going to be something when you go to a town, it's going to be a rarity that you go to, there's going to be a mall, not malls. And we're already at that stage right now. So it's interesting to see this and to see them thriving so much as a location. That's going to be an interesting thing in the post-COVID world. What are these going to look like? Are they going to look like anything?
Yeah, I know. It's, but I'm loving this sequence with these bad guys where they just obviously are making so many wrong moves, so many mistakes, to the point his own buddies were saying, dude, don't do that. What are you, nuts? Yeah. And just dangling a little girl over the railing thinking, yeah, this is going to get me to freedom. Dude, what are you talking about? And I do like the fact that he's obviously just got out of prison because he's like, I don't want to go back. So there is that whole desperation thing. And it's just, I love this sequence because it gave us so many different levels. And as you're watching it, you know what's going to happen. Wonder Woman's going to swoop in and save the day. And it's just this great anticipation when she finally makes her appearance and she finally starts doing her thing. It's like, it's just some great, cool sequences of Wonder Woman. And here's how you have a superpowered person fight non-superpowered people, and it still be entertaining.
Time out. The line of the movie right here. The guy goes to pull out the gun. She calmly looks at him and goes, "We're not going to be doing that today."
Yeah.
I mean, that was so cool. Yeah. And you're right. This sequence is a great way to introduce her as a character. I think it fits so fitting after seeing the Themyscira scene. The pacing of this movie is something that I really appreciated. It moves really, really quick. And get you into the action, get you pumped up, get you excited, get you interested in the world here. I love when she saved the girl and slid her into the big giant.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Look, it's the moments like that really, the combination of funny and action, where the funny moments don't lose anything. You don't lose anything by having it be comedic. It's not, hokey or, it doesn't take away from it. And I love that about this movie, especially some of these action sequences and the lasso work.
Yes.
That is some beautiful stuff they got going on. And even when we saw the previous Themyscira stuff, we saw the other Amazons were doing the lasso work. So it's like, it's not just Wonder Woman who's doing it. It's her people. This is what they do. The lasso isn't just a rope for them. It's not just a way to make someone tell the truth. It is a part of her. It is a weapon that she uses. And I love that about this.
Fun without being hokey. You said that before. Yeah. Fun to me is a big factor of this film. I think we had for a while there where Batman was such a successful character in a film that there was this theme that like every superhero had to be dark and more like Batman. I'm a huge Batman fan. He's my favorite character. Pretty much tied with Spider-Man. What works about this movie is they don't try to make her into Batman. Yeah. They embrace Wonder Woman and allow this to be a character that's accessible and fun. And this is a movie that was so on Christmas Day when you're watching this movie, right? It's this year in particular for Christmas. It just wasn't a traditional like exciting Christmas. I normally spend Christmas with my brother. My brother had COVID earlier in the week. And he was in the hospital because of bronchitis with the COVID, in the mix of that whole thing. So this is the first year since I can remember I didn't see my brother on Christmas Day. We did a smaller Christmas Eve with my in-laws the night before, but Christmas Day, my wife and I stayed home, and I watched this. And honestly, this was the shining star of like I'll remember Christmas this year being how cool is it to see Wonder Woman at home streaming, because you couldn't, it wasn't a year where you were comfortable going anywhere else. And this was I wouldn't have wanted a darker movie. I wanted something that, like, to your point, was fun, dramatic, lots of action, and had a great story to it. Like she's sitting right now at the restaurant, and I love these moments where they're like, she loves Steve so much that she's still connected to that loyalty to that relationship. And this sets up a really important tone. This isn't like a couple of weeks. This is years, years, decades that has been since Steve passed. And she's, still thinking of this man and has kind of kept herself, certainly kept an active life. She's done a lot. She's had a ranch. She has this archaeology job that she does. She's involved and busy and doing things for the world. And she's Wonder Woman. But she's deliberately distancing herself from any kind of male,
any contact.
Yeah. Because this guy offers to share a taxi with her because he's like, hey, I realize I think I just took your taxi. You want to share? And we'll both, head on over there. And purely innocent, and she's kind of, you see her looking in the stars at the plane to Steve, and I thought that was something that was really well established in this, was this idea of she's still longing for this relationship that was one of the highlights for me of the first movie. So it's something that I'm glad was a part of this. We're going to have to talk about if we liked how it wound up being a part of this and where it went, but interesting piece. What did you think about Barbara Minerva and the casting of Kristen Wiig?
Absolutely loved this, and I'll tell you, when I first heard Kristen Wiig, I was like, "What? Really?" Completely made me a believer.
Yep,
100%. She was absolutely, for me. This was dang near perfect of what I would want. It's different. She's different than the comic book, so she is different. But again, if you tell me a really great story, if you have the right people in the roles, I'm all for it, and it just, for me, this was a great moment. I love how we get to see just her initially starting off as this sweet person who's a bit of a klutz, a bit of an outcast, a bit of, she's one of us. She's a geek, and you see that, and you see how she turns into Cheetah, how she becomes that. I was like, man, this is nice. Again, you get me immediately liking the character, liking the person, so that later on, it's, kind of even, it tugs at the heartstrings a little bit. It makes it more of a deeper impact when she turns.
Diana hasn't just shut herself off from males, though, because one of the things as I'm watching this Barbara Minerva sequence again, where, they're first meeting each other, she's also avoiding lunch with her. And I don't think, like, in a mean talk to the hand thing, Diane is kind of like, I come in, she's business, like all business. Until, like, this sequence with Barbara Minerva starts talking about the FBI and the mall heist. And it's a piece that we don't want to gloss over. The mall heist was of jewels and artifacts meant for private buyers. But some of these are very, very old, very, very ancient. And now Diana's interested in this conversation because she's trying to find out, okay, what exactly was taken and why are the FBI interested? It's a different sort of conversation now. Barbara Minerva being in awe of Diana, you can see why, right?
Yeah.
Gal Gadot being like this, and if I'm pronouncing her last name wrong, I apologize, because I think I do it all. It's either Gal Gadot or Gal Gadot, and I think I pronounce it wrong every time. But her casting is so perfect as Wonder Woman. I think she plays the duality of Diana Prince and Wonder Woman so well. You obviously she's very beautiful, but she also carries herself with a grace and does the emotional piece of, you believe she cares, even though she's distancing herself from the world. Like her interaction with that little girl in the mall, the wink and stuff like that, was so cool. And, in those moments, you feel like you're there in the mall seeing this unfold. That was really important. The sequence with her and Barbara Minerva right now, where you see her so, like, intellectually interested in what's going on and actually sharing tidbits of information that she knows about the history, like the Latin and things like that on the side, which we know from having seen the movie isn't the whole story. This is really, really cool because I didn't catch this the first time through when she makes her wish, but it's coming where Diana makes her wish and you see her hair blow slightly.
Yes.
And I don't know if you caught it the first time. I did not. The second time through when I was watching it, I was like, oh, that is so cool. I completely missed that the first time through. And the coffee wish, I missed that the first time through. The guy wish.
Talk about a waste of a wish, dude.
Yeah. Unless it was really good coffee.
Unless it was really good coffee. Yeah. Yeah. And again, I liked, like you said, that Diana's initial wish was a cool moment because without her verbalizing it, we all knew what she wished for. And just the subtleness with the hair and just that right there, the wind blowing, and I'm like, right there, you know what she wished for. 100% wish for Steve back. And that, again, they kept adding to it and adding to it. And to your point about Gal Gadot playing Wonder Woman, she's got, it's not just for Wonder Woman. You can't just be beautiful, because she is. Yeah. You have to have that presence. You have to have that physical presence where it's, you believe she is as powerful as she is. You believe she's got that great, everybody wants to be her friend. Everybody wants to be around her. And she's got that, that wonderful presence, because that is part of some of the cool stuff with Wonder Woman, that she's not just about punching somebody in the face. She's got the compassion, the love, all that stuff that's in her, all that really cool, the coolness that is her. And I liked seeing that she really, really brings that to the screen. And that's the kind of stuff where when from the first movie onto this movie, and then especially going on into the next movie, I really want to see her as both Diana and Wonder Woman. She does both the dualities really well, and it's something I always enjoy in these movies.
And she's wicked smart. I mean, which is a piece that's pretty important because of the fact that she's lived so long. You've got to be able to believe that, and it doesn't look awkward. It's thrown in such a way that she's holding back knowledge so not to reveal that secret. And it's something that you pick up on as a viewer, as you're watching this, that's a nuance that's pretty important for an actress to deliver in that role. We know she's lived a long time. Her behavior is showing that she's trying to hide that in her interactions with Barbara Minerva. And I really, really liked that. I mean, that was, I thought, some terrific acting in this film.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. And again, these sequences between Diana and Barbara, just in the restaurant, just that friendly, playful, communication back and forth. And again, you're seeing, Diana's compassion towards this, I don't want to say loser because, she's not a loser. She's just, she's one of us. She's a geek. She's, awkward around people. People look at her like she's weird and funny. And especially back in the 80s, people weren't as, accepting of us and our brethren, as they are, now, modern times. So that's something I really liked, how, she was picked on. The popular kids, they picked on her, and bullying and all that stuff is thrown around, and it's more defended nowadays. But back in the 80s and the 70s, when she was a kid, the geeky dorky people, we weren't the popular ones. We weren't the ones who everyone's inviting to the parties and hang out and let's be buddies. No, we were the outcasts, and I like seeing that you really do see the outcast and the person who would be super popular hanging out and talking, and just they both understand each other. They both have had this heartbreak. They both had this loss, and it's kind of a neat moment.
Yeah, and it's one of the things I do like about her too is I get this idea that she is not looking at Barbara in any way, shape, or form as this geeky, pathetic person.
Right.
Because that's not Diana. And when she was having the conversation, there was nothing put on, like at that lunch. Diana was relaxed, being herself, and it was charming because she was engaging Barbara as who Barbara was. Her pushing Barbara away earlier, I think because of the fact that she pushed away the guy at the taxi, you got this idea of Diana's not living life. There's something holding her back, and we know it's Steve, right? So, yeah. But when you see her actually give in to this idea of having lunch with Barbara, she engages her and it's genuine. She really was looking at Barbara as who Barbara is. And I think I could see that's even more why Barbara's drawn to her, because I want to be this confident person who just takes people at face value for who they really are. And it was so interesting. When Diana saved her, I thought that was yeah. Such a great sequence. It's honestly, it takes no power at all. Yeah.
Well, it just used his own body weight against him. Just the simple explanation why she was able to throw him, 20 yards or something. Just his own body weight against him. It's nothing really.
I think what Kristen Wiig does really well here is establishes very early who Barbara Minerva is and why Barbara Minerva would be so driven to try and become something more. Yeah. I think Diana, over time, if that friendship and that relationship continued, Diana could convince her of her own worth. Diana could help her see her own worth. Barbara's not in that place right now. Barbara is used to being ignored. We see that from her coworkers, that they don't even remember interviewing her. They don't even remember that they work with her. They're very dismissive of her. So she looks at how everybody reacts to Diana, or at least her perception of how everybody reacts to Diana, and she wishes to be like Diana. And you get that piece. I think we all had points in time in our life where you wish to be somebody else before you come into your own and realize who you are and start to value yourself. Hopefully we all hit that point where we do. Yeah. I know I had points in time in my life where I didn't have high, thoughts about myself. I think we've all gone through lack of confidence in our life. That's where these characters are relatable. You're looking at this with Barbara and oh no, Barbara, I remember being in that state myself. We've all been there at some point in time. This is not the answer. It was so interesting. The watch piece was so cool because when we saw the watch originally earlier in the film, start ticking again, you knew it was going to happen. I was excited to see Steve come back in this. I was wondering how were they going to pull this off so Steve came back. We'll talk more when Steve actually makes his first appearance about what he's like in this film, but it was an area of anticipation for me as I was looking at those sequences of like, when is Steve going to come back? How is that going to happen? Because I really like the dynamic between Steve and Diana in this far more than I have in a long time in the comic books, I would say. And that's not an insult to the comics' use of Steve. There was something about the chemistry in the first film between the two that I really, really liked. So it was something for this film I was anticipating. We'll talk about it as we get closer to that. So we start to see little clues to the fact that this has worked for Barbara. The fact that she originally was
heel.
Yes. Yeah. Wait, not only walking heels, she's flipping up on top of stools when there's water splashing by her. Now she's being noticed by coworkers. All right, we got to talk about him. Max Lord. Thoughts?
Yes. Oh God, I'll tell you. I actually really like this version of Max Lord.
I do too.
I really did. Now, the evil, maniacal Max Lord who wants to conquer the world in the comic books is wonderful, and I'm never going to knock that. That was a great villain, is a great villain, and I loved it. But this version of Max, this kind of Weasley, TV persona, who's, basically a guy who's kicked when he was a little kid, and he's always been picked on, and he's just, he just wants his piece of the pie. He just wants that, that one moment of greatness. I like this version. I like this weasel. And I like how they turned, him into this super powerful creature that he was, a different version of that same super powerful creature that he was in the comic. But again, this is just something I was like, man, this is a really neat way of doing this. And I didn't know how they were going to do it. And, when you first started introduction of him, I'm like, okay. But this is a character that as it's going on, as it's growing, you're seeing him just like, hey, yeah, thumbs up to you, buddy. Yeah, life is good, but it can be better. Just that cheesy TV persona. You're just like, oh man. And then the glimpses of the moments when you see the bad guy in there, where he's got the fake, covering of, I'm just your friend. I'm Max. Yeah. Kind of. I love that duality. I love that flip the script that he kept doing throughout this.
Are you watching The Mandalorian?
You know what? I'm not. And I now have access to Disney Plus, so I'm going to start watching it. I didn't realize he was the Mandalorian.
and where I'm going with this and why I'm mentioning it is because you mentioned his acting in this. If you look at this character that he's playing and the duality of this character, then look at him as the Mandalorian. This guy really does a nice job of being able to show a lot of range. And it's the nice thing about this film is we've got some acting talent in this that is really showing a lot. Kristen Wiig, we've got him, Gal Gadot. There's just a lot of dynamic range going on in this film, and these are people that can deliver it. And this casting is really the key of this film. It's where if there's any criticisms that at least I had of this film, they're so small because of the fact that I think the talent that is delivering this did such a great job of delivering it. That it's the whole as a whole body of this thing was such. I enjoyed it better the second time through, and it's not saying that I didn't love it the first time, but the second time through, that's kind of like my litmus test of do I want to see it a third? And I'm like, I'm watching it right now and enjoying every bit of this conversation as we're watching it. Sometimes I've got to forget we're supposed to talk about this while I'm watching it because it's such a great movie.
Well, his performance in Game of Thrones was one of those things that shows you, again, this guy's got this is an actual actor. And I love the fact that these superhero movies are getting real actors who can actually play these roles, who give us this great emotional responses. And again, I'm really digging what he brought to the table. And I immediately love how Diana is immediately skeptical of him, and she's suspicious of him, and she's like, hey, what's going on here? But Kristen Wiig, she's not used to the attention. So he's playing that up beautifully, and he really has her going because, again, we think back to just, you and mine, with us when we were kids, this is the kind of stuff where if you had someone like this coming up to you, when your whole life, you never had that kind of attention, you're starting to get it, you're going to not know how to handle it. And we see that throughout the movie as she's more the attention people are giving her. She's like kind of, oh yeah, and she's got everybody eating out of the palm of her hands. Where when Diana's in the room and everybody's trying to, hey, she's just ignoring them. She's just moving on. She's got her focus on what she's doing. It's kind of a neat thing seeing them each have the same attention and how they deal with it, and it's based on how long they've dealt with it. And
I think to your point about the acting talent too, Jim, is the more acting talent that is winding up in all of these films, what you're finding from them is, the higher the grade of the talent, is that there's less of the apology for being in a superhero movie.
Right.
That used to be a thing very early on. We don't see it as much now. Now people are excited about being in these films. My gosh, the last month of content that's been released. WandaVision, by the way, for anybody listening that has, if you've got Disney Plus and you haven't watched it, WandaVision, I'm not 100% sure what's going on. I have a lot of theories in the first 2 episodes, but it's another home run superhero show hit that is so different than anything. It's very Twilight Zone almost in its presentation, and I love that about it. We are in this era now where incredible talent is attached to these things, and they're embracing the layers of these characters that we have seen for years in the comic books. This interaction here is absolutely terrific. The only thing that would have made it more is if we had Metamorpho.
Yes,
as well.
Yes. Stag and Stag and Max. This was just a great moment. I love how he's just tearing him down.
Yep.
And Max is trying to do his best. And again, it's that whole. It makes him a sympathetic villain. And some people aren't going to like the fact that he's sympathetic and they want that pure evil Max Lord. For me, I like that it is a sympathetic villain. He is a bit pathetic. He is, you do feel in a way kind of bad for him. But there is that question of how do you go from being the pathetic to justifying you trying to destroy the world?
Right.
But I love how we see it going through it. We see it playing out. It's not just about his wanting to be super rich. It's also about wanting his son not to think he's a pathetic loser. It's about not wanting to feel like a pathetic loser anymore. And there's all these different levels of what is going on through Max, that it's not just about evil intentions. And I love those kind of villains where it's not just about evil, especially, we see Diana deals with him. It's not just punch him in the face. And I love seeing that because this is kind of again, look at the little kid's face is when his dad just got talking down to, and he's trying to explain to him, no, that guy's the loser. I'm not a loser. He's going to regret this. And all those moments, of those real, just raw human emotions between father and son. I love this scene. I absolutely love this scene.
Yeah, I do too. And the kid, this is a good actor, this kid, because, you see him as this kid who, because dad is so driven to his job, dad does no balance. Dad is driven with being who dad has determined he needs to be. He needs to be this person that is number one. Everybody views and knows as number one. That his kid can look up to and be proud of. And he'll never be satisfied. It's very clear that no matter what success Max receives, he'll never be satisfied that success is enough to be that person that he is talking about. And it's where he's dangerous in this, because he is going to get an opportunity to head in that direction, and it's a take. Keep going. And every step closer he gets to attaining it, and everything that he attains along the way, he wants the next thing, and then the next thing, and then the next thing, to the point where we see how dark this gets for him, and he loses complete sight of his kid, right now. Yeah. And we see the glimpses of that very early on, where I generally feel he loves his kid, but listen, there's going to be time for that later. Well, when's that time, Max? This sequence with Kristen Wiig is great. And this is where I really have a lot of respect for her, because she's gone from total geek to now, diva. Yes. And pulls it off really, really well.
A great transformation of her. And again, it's, I always laugh a lot of times when Hollywood takes a pretty actress and they kind of make them dopey, because it doesn't fit the character. And then you have these moments where they let them actually shine. And they really did that with her where, before she was, dressing all frumpy and had the big, thick glasses and this and that. And then this time they dress her up and she's like, bam, But the neat thing was you got Gal Gadot shows up at the same gala and all the people are fawning over as she's walking in. All the guys are like, hey, how you doing? All of it, she's just moving on past it. And I love how they each have that same attention. They each get that same persona because if you think about it, Kristen Wiig wished to be like, Diana. Barbara wanted to be like Diana, so she's got that same appeal, that same, that draw, that same that X factor, that whatnot about her that makes everyone want to be around her, want to be with her.
Here's a difference. Here's a difference, though. Diana isn't like noticing it. Like Diana's just walking, making her way through. Exactly. Almost is like, I need you out of my way because I need to get to where I need to be. Whereas Kristen's awkwardly like making her way through it, which she does a great Christopher Reeve in this. And please know I'm saying this as an immense compliment. Christopher Reeve did the great duality of when he was Superman versus when he was Clark Kent, especially when you look at Superman the movie and Superman 2. He did in all of them. Yeah. And I mean, when he was establishing that very, very early on, especially in Superman the movie, who Clark Kent was versus who Superman was. She's doing that here. And I say that as a compliment, with immense compliment, because it feels genuine. Like, she has not dropped Barbara Minerva, the geeky Barbara Minerva, as she's got this, like, hot look going on right now. The awkwardness is still there, but yet you see why others would be drawn to her. And the attention from Max Lord, because Max was one of the first that gave her attention, is like this person that she's latching onto, he's a big-time guy who paid attention to her for his own selfish reasons. She doesn't realize it. He was manipulating her all along, and she has not caught on to it. And truthfully, never really does.
Yeah, she doesn't. It's, and it's funny because, I love this sequence, between them when they're at the party, before they go off private, where she's initially, she tries to initially downplay, like, I've worn this 1,000 times. And then she's like, no, I haven't. This is the first time wearing. I don't dress like this, And that moment for me was just a great acting moment. You said, does the Christopher Reeve? Completely agree with what you were saying, where she had that duality of the geek and that well blended, just that persona, where you 100% believe her. She wasn't Kristen Wiig. She was Barbara Minerva. And I love when actors get to the point where you completely lose them into that character. It's not just an actor playing a role. You believe that's them. I think I'll be honest with you, they all did that in this movie. Every one of them have that kind of thing where it's that believability where they're so in tune with the character. That's why that's one of the reasons I really enjoyed this, was because you get that kind of, it's that full believability, suspension of all disbelief where you're 100% in on this.
Max being so driven and distracting of her, recognizing that he has, it's one of the things with Max, he knows how to charm people. Male, female, whatever. He has succeeded over the years. He's the ultimate con man. Yep. And he plays the con man role well. He picked into actually her weakness, because that's what con mans do. They prey on the weakness of others. What is the thing you're most perversely driven to? Okay, so here's the Steve sequence where Steve first comes in. Actually, I do want to talk about this. So what did you think about this being the way that Steve came back, that Steve has popped into his body? And I like the lines that he uses to, like, draw in Diana.
Yeah, I wish we had more time.
Yes.
I can save the day, you can save the world. It puts the watch in her hand, and just, all that stuff just to let her know it's me. I really like this.
I did too.
How, and it's part of the reason I liked it was, one, it adds to the whole thing with the wish. we find out later it's the god of lies who created this, not the god of hope or peace or love or any of that stuff. So there's always the price. There's always, I'm going to give you what you want, but not exactly how you wanted it. Diana would have wanted the magical body come back. Diana would have wanted physical Steve. She doesn't get that. She gets what she wanted. She gets what she wished for. There's Steve back, but it's not exactly the way you wanted it. And that's the thing. That's why I really like the persona. Now, I understand because my brother's one of the guys. My brother and I had a conversation on this. He wished he would have rather seen either Steve, actual physical, come back or come back as a ghost image where only Diana can see it. He thought that would be kind of a neat way of doing it where you get them back, but you don't get them back kind of stuff. And I'm like, yeah, that would have been a cool moment as well. I wouldn't have had an issue with that.
Except, but in the context, and I'm not disputing that. In the context of this story, though, we've got this stone that you'd wish for. I could see her wishing for him back in like his actual body. So that piece I can see, and actually, I don't know that I would have preferred either or, as far as that end goes, his body or this guy's body. But the ghost piece, why would she have wished for him back as a ghost? Are you saying you would have preferred that as?
Well, no, I liked how they did it, but this is when I was talking to my brother Bill about Wonder Woman. That was something he thought that would be kind of a neat way to handle it, because you think about it, her wish probably was, I wish I had Steve back. Not wish I had Steve back in his body and all that. So again, if you deal with a mischievous god, who says, I wish for blank, they're going to take you exactly at how you did the wish, not exactly not how you wanted it, but what you said. She wished for Steve back. She never said, I wish for Steve back in a body. Well, you got Steve back. Hey, you got, kind of thing. And little stuff like that they could have done, with this. Again,
the mischievous part, though, the mischievous part of this is that you give up something for that. You get your wish. So far, everybody who's been asking for the wish, they've gotten their wish. And to your point, though, and actually where I'm validating you to a certain extent, is you do get your wish based on like what you actually wish for. And it's one of the reasons why Max a lot of times, that's all you're wishing for, because you're basically giving up that wish. He does it with his kid the most. So I get that piece. The one piece I will say I'm confused about with this, and it's the area where I'm critical about it. Why in somebody else's body? Diana wouldn't have wished for that. That's the only part of it that I found puzzling. It wasn't something that like overly derailed, but when I said before there's a criticism I have, that is a criticism I have. I'm like, I get from the storytelling standpoint, because they end up using the guy later, and I actually quite liked what they did with it. I liked that she saw him for who he is, meaning she saw him in her mind. That's her Steve. Yeah. So she, loves blind, loves, she sees him through love's eyes. I like the romantic nature of that. So that part of the sequence I actually quite liked. So it added a sense of she really loves this man to the point where we know that he's in another body, but she sees him for who he is. I actually liked that theme. So it makes me forgive the part that I'm like, but why is he in another body? Yeah. Like, she wouldn't have wished for that. So, and I get your God, it's the God of mischief and all that piece, and maybe there's an element of what you were saying to that justifies that. But to me, the mischief of this always was, you get your wish, but there's a sacrifice. You lose something.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's a combination of, for me, and it's, again, I don't 100% know why they did another body, but again, for me, it's always again, I'm going to steal something from my brother that my brother said, so I got to give him credit for it. It's like if you went up to Loki and said, hey, Loki, do me a favor. I'm going to do you a favor, but I'm not going to give it exactly how you want it. I'm not going to do it your way. I'm going to do it my way. And that's kind of and that's for me kind of the justification I have on not in Steve's body. Mm-hmm. And that's what I think, that's where I get it from. And that's why I'm okay with it. Now, ideally, I'll be honest with you, I wish I would have wanted, in his own body, Steve's body come back. But again, for our story-wise, I like this. I do enjoy this, and I think this was a good usage of this. Was a kind of a neat thing because it added to the pain later on of the pain of choice that Diana has to make later on when she renounces the wish. It makes it even harder for her that she's losing him again. But it's, it does add to the whole element of her holding on to it, because as long as Steve's around, this other guy's not living his life. So it's a further add on to why Diana has to do what she has to do. It's kind of a neat layer of the wish.
The power loss that she has too, I thought was tied into Barbara Minerva. I didn't realize it was her sacrifice, off of that piece, which was interesting. Because as the film went on, I'm like, wait a minute, she lost her powers because of wishing for Steve, not because of Barbara's wish. Barbara didn't take her power. At first, I thought Barbara took her powers.
That's what I thought too. When it first happened, I thought, the first time when she's trying to rip off the lock on the door, I'm like, oh, okay, her powers are now split between her and Barbara. And then later on, when we realize there's a price to pay, like Barbara's price is her compassion and her humanity that she loses.
And her refrigerator door.
And her refrigerator door, yes. But, Diana's is her powers. Max is his health. So as you make a wish, there's a price. You have to give up something for it. And I like that, that end of it, that aspect of there's a price for everything.
I love that now they're back and Steve and Diana are having this, they have this romantic evening together. And Steve is like amazed by the smallest things, like the fact that how easy it is to make coffee and Pop-Tarts.
Yes. Well, you think about it, 1900 is when he was around.
Yes.
So the dramatic changes from 1917 to 1989, 84. It's dramatically different.
I like that he's like, I don't want to leave. I don't want to leave this room. I don't want to leave this moment. And they're both in that place because they've both gotten what they've wanted. Because he's wanted this too. Because we know from the first movie how much he loves her, and we know how much she loves him. But she's like, I should probably go and figure out how a stone brought my boyfriend back in somebody else's body.
Yeah.
And I like him. He's like, that's a fair point. I love their interactions. This sets off a series of interactions that were fun. Their relationship is so relaxed between the two of them that there's a fun factor to it that you said it before, not hokey. It's fun. This movie is not afraid to have fun. The Spider-Man movies, the most recent ones, I've really loved because they're fun. They're not afraid to be fun. That isn't to say that there isn't dark moments, there isn't devastating moments that happen in those films, but they're not afraid to have moments where there's fun. Her Cheetah right now, we got Barbara, like realizing how strong she is. And she's lifting immense amounts of weights and things like that. And this is a fun moment that you get smiles out of her shock over what she can do. And the shock of those around her, but it never goes to the point where it's camp. And it totally works in this world, and I think it's why this movie becomes accessible. All right, let's talk about Max now, because he's meeting with Stag again. Max decided to become the Stone. Of all wishes, I was like, whoa, dude. And that shows that he is next level. He's not content with one wish. He knows by becoming the Stone, it's a pathway for him to get as many wishes as he wants. Because he's now the vehicle for...
Honestly... when he first did the wish, I'm like, what are you doing, dude? Yep. I did not understand where this was going to go because I still didn't realize that when you grant a wish, you get something. Because this is it. When we start seeing with Stag is when we start seeing that when you grant a wish, you get something from the person. That's the thing that I didn't realize when it was first started. And that's when I realized the price that it pays and all that stuff. And I love how Max basically tricks Stag into wasting his wish on helping Max. This is what you wish for me, right? Yes. Wish granted, thank you. And I'm going to take this from you. And I love those moments. Again, it does start showing the darkness and the evil that is in him. But again, you still don't completely lose your sympathy for him.
I love though this gives you the idea of, and it does, this watches so differently the second time through when you know what's been happening. Because he sits there, I want your shares and your control. And after you've somehow been magically removed from my path. And this is when the FBI comes into this whole sequence. And, or federal taxation crime. They're coming in.
It's IRS.
The IRS. I'm sorry. Yes, the IRS is coming in to take him out for the taxation crime, and it's just so instantaneous that like comes in and he's walking out in shock of what's happening around him, even though he knew Max had been researching this stone for a long time. Max knew what this... Max is the only one who fully understands this stone walking in. Well, as fully as you can.
Well, yeah, and I liked how he was still figuring it out for himself.
Yes.
You know, because it's something that you won't 100% know until you actually start experiencing it. Now, what I call the pretty woman scene.
I love this.
Where they're going through the clothing. And it's funny. I laugh, but I did enjoy it because, again, it gives us this great banter between Diana and Steve. And it's this fun moment of these two actors really, they get along well with each other. You can't fake this. There is a good connection between them. There is a fun, friendly connection between them. And I actually enjoyed this sequence. You know, the first time around, I did chuckle a little bit more. But again, as I said, it's the pretty woman scene. A lot of movies have this in there where they go through multiple changes, multiple, appearances. It's a comic moment. But again, I like it. I didn't have an issue with this scene. I thought it was kind of neat.
I love the shoes. I love that Steve is like trying to bargain with her on certain things that he can keep, as she's trying to help him with clothes that this guy's got to put together an outfit. And I like that Steve's basically saying all the things we'd say. Who would wear this? Nobody would actually wear this. I love his fascination with the American issue fanny pack.
Yes.
That was a cool sequence, too. Well, and escalators.
The fanny pack itself, he still's got one on. And I'm like, you know what? I remember fanny packs. And, when I go to Vegas or when I go over to Italy, I actually have a satchel that I carry, like Indiana Jones had. And my dad has a fanny pack that he wears when we go to Vegas that has all his stuff in it. So my family still is 100% rocks a fanny pack. And I'm digging it. I'm all for it, Steve.
Steve's fascination with every little thing, it takes me back to what I loved about Diana's exploration of the world for the first time. And Diana, in some ways, this is a nice role reversal where she gets to guide Steve through the world because she knows this sense of wonder. She's been there before. Steve hasn't. She knows what it's like to come out of time and come to this place that has all these magical things. And... breakdancing looking like combat is. I love this when he jumps away from the guy when he's doing this when he's doing the spin. The art sequence where they're looking at the art, and she's basically pointing out all of these things that you wouldn't think of as art are all art, and he looks at the garbage can.
Yeah, I know. It's funny. I'm reminded of that one Val Kilmer movie where he was blind and gets his sight back.
Oh, yes. And
he sees the graffiti and goes, "This must be art." And he's like, "Yes, I guess so." And again, it's that wonder. But the best sequence always is when he sees the aerospace and they go into the aerospace and he sees the rockets and he sees the shuttles and he sees all this wonder. Because again, no matter what he was an adventurer, he was a fighter. First and foremost, he's a pilot. First and foremost, he flies. And his fascination with where life has gone from back when the 1900 planes that he flew to the modern day air travel and space travel, I can 100% see that. And this is a sequence I absolutely love, just that wonder in his eyes.
Also, though, from a dual layer to the whole thing, Diana, every time she has seen this stuff, has known how enthralled Steve would be with it. This is her partner. This is somebody that she cares about, and she knows that, I've always wanted to show him this. Never thought I would get this chance. Now I can. I can be here experiencing this with him for the first time, introducing him to this thing that I knew he would love, and seeing that she nailed it. In those moments it's so cool because it quickly establishes. You've got to, in the short time of this film, establish the fact that these two are deeply in love. And it's not surface level. They understand who each other is as a person, from their interests to their code to... it's not just physical. There's a deep emotional understanding of who they are. Boy, wouldn't it be nice if it was this easy to get extra help at a job? You know, okay,
yes.
What would you like
just
to
tell me you wish for it? Yes. So she wasted her wish for him, which kind of stinks for her. But the good news is he didn't take anything from her, so she's still herself. Only thing is she just doesn't have anything good happening for her.
Well, we don't know that nothing was taken from her, but I get your point. I mean, as far as there's nothing established that is taken from her.
Right.
Well, I guess that's the question. Is the requirement that something has to be taken from somebody?
No, I don't think so. Because I think well, one, that sequence to me shows that it doesn't have to, but also when later on, when he starts giving stuff to Barbara from other people, I think it's open. It's up to the stone what it wants to do. And since he is the stone, he can, actually pull it away.
True, because his motivating factor, and could potentially be very true, his motivating factor later in wishes is getting people that he hasn't had wish yet to wish so that way he can take the things from them that he needs.
Right. And it's not like he's taking anything from them.
Right.
All the time.
Right.
I tell you again, it was neat seeing Barbara, the confident Barbara, and Diana working together. Because there still is that wonder that Barbara has towards Diana, even though she's kind of now starting to get on the same level as Diana.
She wants to be friends.
I do like this relationship.
She also, though, wants to be friends with her. She looks at Diana as a potential friend and confidant. That lunch to her was the starting point of a friendship. So she's like basically saying, hey, you got a guy. I'm interested in Max, and it was pretty great. Let's talk about that later. She's figuring that that's a chance for them to bond over, maybe double date and those type of things. She's seeing the doorway opening, but she's being shunned again. Even though she's gotten this new... So this is the building of starting to become... She's still in awe of Diana and still wants that friendship, but there's now the building blocks of resentment of Diana.
It's the beginning of the end of their friendship.
Right.
And again, it's something that played out nicely and slowly because you have that initial kind of like anger at her, Diana, when Diana dismisses her, but later on you do see her jump into the fire and help Diana out when hey, I need a favor. Oh yeah, sure. What do you need? So there is still that friendship, but it's the beginning of the end to it. And I love how, again, they didn't do something dramatic, flip the switch. It was a drawn-out process, and you do end up seeing the exact moment when Diana loses her as a friend.
Yes. Well, and the question is, the friendship was so... What she doesn't understand, Barbara, because she hasn't had many friends, is that friendship is something that's cultivated over time. And there's different layers and levels of friendship. There's lots of people I am friends with. Not as many people that are close friends, that are your friends you can count on 24/7 for everything. And you develop that as you get more friends over time. You understand that friends are still friends if they fall into those different categories. It's just getting comfortable with the fact that somebody who you may desire to be a best friend may never be that best friend. Circumstance, there's all kinds of reasons why they may not become that person. And I think that's part of maturing, is when you realize that it's okay to have people who are friends on that level and just getting used to and getting comfortable with that. It's a maturity thing that I think we all struggle with when friendships aren't what they seemed to be.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, I dig Diana and Trevor, their investigation, their detective work.
Yep.
Everything from the little subtle things of when they first enter the office. Diana picks up the one box. Trevor picks up some paperwork. Because if you're walking through an office, you're going to have your hands full. You're going to be doing something. So they're just trying to blend in to when they start going through the office and seeing all the different artifacts and all the different articles on it. And the point where Diana sees the stone and has that shock because it's the god of lies and just all that the fear. When Diana's afraid of something, when Diana's concerned of something, this is something big. You should be afraid of it as well.
She doesn't know yet who the god is.
Right.
She hasn't quite gotten to that yet. She just knows now that language in there is implying there is a god here. And it could be It could be a good God, or it could be a very and she's making the assumption right now that there is something to this that is likely negative. She just doesn't know what it is. There's the mystery. That's the part I really liked about this movie. It did a great job of establishing a mystery. What is the real deal behind the stone? And what does it mean? And Max, clearly from the paperwork that's there, had been researching it for far longer. They don't realize yet that what happened to this stone? Where did the stone go? They can't fathom the idea that Max would have absorbed it, because your mind wouldn't go there. But I love that he threw away some of this stuff, some of the clues, casually, not assuming that people would be coming after him, because Max is assuming right now he's stealth. Nobody knows what he's doing. And there's a certain truth to it, because even though Diana and Steve have clues and information of this, they still don't fully know what has happened here.
Yeah, I tell you, one of the things that I really liked about this movie was the nice blend of the action to the fun story to this detective work, this kind of stuff, this character building but story building stuff. I really liked how they had that great balance of this, throughout this movie, but they never lose the physical action sequences. Now, as the fascination, again, Steve has with the planes, the fascination that Steve has with, you have a plane that can fly to Cairo, that is something I really do love. Again, his wonderment of the planes.
And he wants to pilot it. He wants to pilot it. They can get a ticket and fly there. He's like, no, I want to fly there.
Fly there, yeah. The one thing it's one of those things that I had a little issue with when I first watched it, but by the end of the scene, I was okay with, was when we get to Steve actually physically flying a plane. Now, the planes he flew, I probably could have flown, because it's a basic, simple aeronautic principle, and it's not as complicated as the modern planes are. But again, just figuring out how to start up a plane with a modern plane would be issues. But I don't have as much of an issue with it now, because they really played off the fact that Steve is a pilot, and this is the areas where
remember though,
see how Diana learns how to fly herself. So it's kind of a neat thing for me. But I do have to admit, when I first was watching it initially, I was like, I don't know about this.
Here's the piece where I'm going to disagree with you a little bit, because if you watch it through, I had the same problem the first time through, but what I noticed when I was watching it through the second time, Steve makes his way through it and makes some mistakes along the way when he's flipping on switches and things like that. He does like a yes and no thing when he goes through them. He's looking for the fuel gauge. He's looking for some of the basic pieces that we would identify amidst the extra instruments. I actually liked that attention to detail, because you're right, that is a thing that Steve would be a fish out of water. Yes, he picks it up really quickly for somebody, so your point's valid. But my point is they did make an attempt in this to acknowledge the fact, like the first switches that he flicks, the first thing he says is no, because it didn't do what he was expecting it to do. I was glad that there was that acknowledgement, because you're right in what you're saying. I'm more agreeing with you than disagreeing with you. But in saying that, I'm glad that they acknowledged that. The problem is you can't put 20 minutes in a film of like Steve learning how to fly this plane.
Right, exactly. And what they could have, and again, it's, as I said, by the end of the sequence, I didn't have an issue with it, because of how much more in the storyline this is about, because it's Trevor explaining he just flies by instinct, and there's just so much of him that is a pilot, so that's why he's able to do all this kind of stuff. And it actually helps Diana later on when she flies. Now, the scene in this that I absolutely loved every single time I watch it is the invisible jet. I love the explanation how it was her father who hid the mascara from the world, and she's like, I did it once with a coffee cup. Well, how long did it last? I don't know. I lost the cup. Just those, again, little funny moments, but also the explanation of how we get the invisible jet. And I love this sequence every single time. I did cheer every single time. Every time I watched it, I'm like, "This is awesome! The invisible jet!" I was high fiving and cheering, and just all the general, this is awesome chant is ringing through my head as you see that. So it's funny. That's any initial issues I had with this whole pilot scene, this whole modern day jet scene, is completely washed away by the end of the sequence. because of the story it was telling, because of the usage it was telling.
I will also make a strong argument because they are so likable. Like, in that sequence, I felt like I was hanging out with them. And you know how I love that. I reference it on the show a lot. These are two fun people. I mean, like, their comedic elements are fun. Their sense of wonder, like, you feel like you're in the plane with them. And it would be so cool. Like, yes, the plane's new for him because it's a new modern plane and things like that. But it's him flying again, which is his love. But it's also they're flying in an invisible jet. Which for all of us is super cool. The technology now and how they, how that invisible jet sequence works is so great. The fireworks sequence, the 4th of July, of course, and the way that they go flying through that is breathtaking. I mean, this is such a really cool sequence of events where, again, it's a romantic moment with a strong sense of wonder embedded in a sequence that really serves as a great way for us to start liking these two people in a really cool way. I like them, like genuinely like them. And it's something in this film. There's a lot to be learned about how to do superhero movies. Serialized storytelling works, and people come back month after month because you got to start liking the characters, their supporting casts. These people, they've got to matter to you. These films are starting to get the idea from between the first film and the second film. Any issues you have out of it, you got to go back to the core of, do I like these people enough that any issues that I have, and they're going to be different from different people, whether it's issues with the music, it's issues with how Steve's back, it's issues with a myriad of other things. We could talk about planes, is the fact that he should not be able to fly this plane because of when he... without some serious issues because of the fact that it's not from his era. Those things should start to drift away if you like the characters enough that you're like, you can suspend my disbelief enough that I'm going to give you some credit for this, some extra credit for this. And that's what you're doing in those moments. Every one of those things is true because they're valid to the experiences of of your brother, of Jeremy, of you, of myriad of other people that have watched this that have their own issues with the film. I have my own. I wasn't, Steve being in some other guy's body. I'm like, well, why is that necessary even for this? I'm still not quite sure I understand that, but it's so like I say that, but I liked the fact that she loved him so much that she sees Steve there. So I'm like, well, yeah, I think that it's silly that he's in another guy's body, but yet I dig that. This sequence is critical where he's talking about flying and what flying does for him and why it's so important to him and how he connects with it. And it's her saying that I don't really understand it the way that you do. And he's explaining the emotion to it and the connection with the wind and the connection, what it does for you. That moment for her, she understands his romantic attachment to flight, and it pays off later in a way that I thought was one of my favorite. We'll talk about it when we get to it. It's one of my favorite sequences of the film, and it's something that I love how this film gradually builds to various happenings in it. It's a great storytelling tool, and it's one of the reasons why. Well, yeah, I'm excusing certain things that are issues. Because the whole of it is so far greater than that. Every film has issues. You can nitpick at them, and they're fun to talk about, the issues that we have in the film, because you're right about the plane. You're right. How is he able to jump in there and start flying it? He certainly didn't wish for it with Max, but... Oh,
but again, and it's because again, I agree completely with you, and I liked how the fact that it really does... I was by the end of that scene, I was able to completely suspend the disbelief,
right?
Because of my love of it. And just like, again, we go right from that scene to, again, us seeing Barbara and us seeing Barbara lose her compassion, lose that humanity. The thing that made her such a nice, wonderful, sweet person is gone now. And I love this sequence when she runs into the drunken idiot that she had dealt with before. This time, it's Cheetah Barbara. It's not, weak old timid Barbara Minerva anymore. It's Barbara who can seriously kick the crud out of you, and we see her do it repeatedly. I actually, again, it's wrong to cheer for someone getting hurt, but again, I cheered for this sequence. I love the scene. I love seeing, just again, that the darkness start to rise up in her.
Yeah.
And again, it's a subtle play as to the development of the bad guy, the evil version of her. And I don't want to, and I did air quotes around evil because, again, it's one of those situations where she lost her compassion, her humanity. And that's what brings out this version of her. But it's a great portrayal, and it's a great sequence and a great scene where you get to really see her dive into it.
The piece is she's realizing Diane lied to her in this sequence too. So there's an anger for a lot of reasons. First, there's an anger that he victimized her earlier in the film. There is the part of her that antagonized him because she wanted to do this to him the way Diana did. She wanted that sequence. There is anger at being victimized. There's anger over years of being victimized. There's anger at being lied to by Diana. There's a lot of layers to what's going on with her in that moment. That's very psychological. I really loved how Kristen Wiig played this. I think she really did. It's funny, you mentioned earlier that she's different from the comics. She isn't. And I'm not disputing what you're saying as far as this is her take on Cheetah, and I agree with you on everything you're saying. But I do love the fact that she really is delving into kind of the evolution of Cheetah that we have seen in runs in comics. Yeah. In a unique way that's, as I said earlier, kind of contemporary to today. And it works really well. This sequence. I'm here, Max is here finally getting his oil, and it proves, even with this all-powerful stone, that it can't account for human change.
Error.
Error, right, exactly. Yeah, human error, exactly. That's actually, yes, to what you just said. So he's trying to fill this guy in a way to, like, entice him into making a wish. So,
yeah, well, and it's funny. I really did like how Max always pulls it out of people, and how he does the little smarmy thing, and how, again, it's he tricks them into saying the words "I wish for blank," and it gets it out of them, and then it's a neat thing, and I love how when he initially says, "I'll take all your oil," and they're like, "I don't have any. I sold all of it." It's like, okay, then I'll take this.
The security team, and leave you with nothing. Bialya being the location, I thought was really cool too. The fact they brought in a blatant DC location. They did do a great job in this film of saying, instead of making generic thug number 5, let's make it somebody from DC lore. I thought that was something that was a really, really good choice.
Yes, definitely. And again, I did like how he grants the wish. And he gets his land back, and he makes sure that nobody else can come in by building that giant wall. And that for me, again, and that's actually further argument for why didn't they create a ghost an actual body for Trevor? If you can build this giant wall, why can't you build Steve a body? But for me, again, I hold on to the fact that it's part of you don't get what you want, and the wish is why she didn't get Steve back in a body. But we've already had that hashed out, that conversation.
We also don't know the exact nature of her wish. Like, her wish is never vocalized. Never
physically heard what she said.
Yeah. So that's an interesting piece off of that with her wish. I would love to know script-wise, like, what her wish was supposed to be. Like, what did she... obviously it was Steve being back, but is the nature of how she wished for it what led to it being the way that it is? I don't know. There's a lot of ways they could have handled that. I will say this. I can agree with the criticisms of that piece because it was one of my own issues as well, but really more of being dumped in that body was the issue. I don't know how you would have done this film without him. And that's not an insult to anybody in the cast. What I really loved about it, the chemistry of these two for this particular film and the way that they play off each other as far as going on this adventure, I would have not... some random guy being plopped in that role would not have been as interesting to me as it being her and Steve.
Right. These two needed to be together. Yeah. And again, it's part of the story. And again, even later on when she has to renounce her wish, it adds to that moment of her giving up Steve and all the time she fights to keep Steve around and all that. It adds to, you know, just the energy and the drama and just the general, you know, story for it. You need to have these two together, and it's a great combination. You know, Wonder Woman 3, I don't know if they're going to figure out another way to have him around or if they're going to do a story without him in it. I don't know. But to be honest, I'm okay with what they decide because this team is creating a great story for it. This is 2 movies now that I've really enjoyed the Wonder Woman universe, and I want more. You know, it's kind of a neat again, this sequence where Trevor and Diana are fighting, you know, Max and his, you know, his army, you know. Again, great action sequence right along with this. And I was, you know, throughout this, you're like, yeah. But here's where you start seeing the glimpses of Diana losing her powers.
Yep. Which, again, I still at this point thought was due to Barbara.
Yeah.
In my first watch, obviously, you know, for the second and beyond. But in my first watch through, I was assuming this is because Barbara's becoming more powerful. She's taking the powers from Diana. I wasn't catching on to the fact that there is when you make a wish, there's something you trade off. And because we didn't see that manifest from the stone. And I wasn't catching that what Barbara was really losing during that was something of her own. This is really a well-done story in the fact that it reveals what you need to know when you need to know it, and leaves it something a mystery when it needs to be left a mystery. It has this is going to be one of those films for me, and I know right now, even in just enjoying it during this conversation, I really enjoy this movie. Not saying it's perfect. There's a difference between a movie, you know, I don't know that there's any, my favorite movies, I don't know that there's any movie that I can think of that I think of as perfect that doesn't have certain issues. I'll use Batman Begins as an example. Batman Begins is my favorite Batman movie because of its focus on Bruce Wayne and the origin of Batman. It focuses on Bruce Wayne and Batman on a level that no other Batman movie has. You know, with regards to getting to really know the character and his origin. The choice at the end with Ra's al Ghul is still a pet peeve of mine. Will always be a pet peeve of mine, yet it's one of my favorite Batman movies of all time. So I'm not saying this is a perfect movie. What movie is? I will say this. The amount of rewatchability this movie looks to be having for me, it's fun. It is real. This is one when I'm looking for a feel-good, fun movie, when I'm going to go work out. Watching the first movie and the second movie, these are going to be marathons that I'm going to keep going with. And honestly, I have a lot of confidence like you do. The third movie, if this creative team keeps going where they are with these films, I think the third one's going to have the same thing. I love what they're doing with these. It's really embracing who Wonder Woman is and not being afraid to have fun with this world. It's not dark for the sake of being dark. There are dark moments in here that need to be dark because of the fact there needs to be a villain and a foil and things like that. But you're not making things unnecessarily, this is too bright, too fun here. No, like this sequence is fun, but it's heavy action based. This is a kick butt fun sequence. And what's just as interesting is, to your point, we're catching on here that she is not as strong as she's been. There's a problem here.
Yeah, and I love just, again, it's this physical action, these physical moments, and just when she's bleeding now and she's getting hit, and there's all these different stuff that are going on with her, you know, and I absolutely, again, first time watching, you're really like, wow, that's kind of cool. But just as it's laying out, I love how in the middle of this action sequence is when she finally starts realizing that Max is the stone. Because she's like, you've got to get back the wig. Where's the stone? Blah, blah. And he's like, you're looking at it. You know, and she's like, oh, crud. And I love that moment. And even Trevor throughout this, you've got some great action sequences with him coming in and lending a hand, you know, saving the day. And, you know, again, he's not just a pilot. He is a fighter. He is a warrior. He is also, kind of an adventurer. And so it's kind of a neat moments of him lending a hand, him helping her out, and him being, riding in to help out. They're a team. And I love just this dynamic between these two, both the actor and actresses, but also the two characters. This is some great moments of the theater. And I love how, when she needs a little boost to help rescue the kids, he fires the rocket and she lassos it, the rocket. Going back to the Themyscira, where we saw the Amazons doing that with arrows.
Yep.
And I loved just that, again, that tie into everything that is Wonder Woman and what is, what she can do. And, it's a great moment. I was like, man, this is cool.
But her powers start failing. When she's grabbed the two kids and the rope starts failing. And it isn't just her that saves the kids. It's her and Steve Trevor. I love that Steve Trevor is not just some kind of tag-along. Steve is human. Steve is vulnerable as everybody else, but yet Steve is a soldier. He's a man of action. He, sees a sequence where he can help out. He's not, he recognizes Diana's strength. He recognizes the fact and is confident in the fact that she's more powerful than him and things like that. But he's confident enough in himself that he doesn't just blend into the background and not try to do something. He's always helping out, always doing something. And it's where they're like the perfect team. And she's hurt right now. He sees it, and his whole thing is not feeling powerless. It's, what's going on with you? What can I do to help? Those type of things. He's the perfect partner for her. You care about this film, I think in particular, it's pretty important to care about the relationship. Because if you don't care about the relationship at this point, you don't care about where this goes. And you need to by now really have bought into these two. Whether you like, the how, there is a connection here with these two that you've got to buy into, and that's well established. So my criticisms as far as him being another body, okay, that's a thing. I care about these two being together so much that where it goes that's the important part of the story. I'm really invested in these two by this point of this film, to the point where I'll forgive, or dismiss other things. Forgive isn't the right word because I was never really at that point, but I'm kind of like, all right, it's not really important to me.
It doesn't take away anything now.
Yeah,
because you so care about these characters. It doesn't take away from it. And again, I love the Diana and Barbara relationship still. Where again, she turned to Barbara for information, and Barbara's been doing some major research, and she's been breaking down all this stuff. Part of the reason they're able to find, this expert on the stone, this expert on all this stuff, is because of Barbara. Yep. She did the legwork, and again, showing her intelligence, showing her willing to work with Diana. They're still friends at this point in time, and I like that. Even though we've already seen moments where she's not trusting Diana, moments where she's starting to go, hey, there's the break of the friendship is starting to happen. But again, I do like how it was a gradual stuff, and there's still that personal connection between these two.
Yeah. And that's something that's where it's important at this point is you've got to establish Barbara Minerva as competent in her job. This film had to do a lot in a short period of time as far as character establishment and making them believable. It's something where I think it's really good writing. When you talk about things that you can nitpick, which you can do with any film, and I'm not saying that's wrong to do that. It's right to do it, as far as that's part of your experience. But what ends up being the difference between, in my mind, the difference between a good film and a film that you just didn't enjoy, when the nitpicks become more all-encompassing, that's a film you didn't enjoy. Where you're sitting here I'm more focused on the things I didn't like than the things that I did, then that probably wasn't a film for you. In this case, this is so a film for me because I had nitpicks in it, and it's more than just the pieces that I've said, but there are things that I would have wished for, things that I would have wanted, areas I wish they'd expanded. We all have those things, but where they start to become background things is because I loved so much of this film.
Yeah, I know, and it's again they did a great job of developing the relationship between these characters, between these people, and between everything. It gets you thinking, okay, yes, who they are. And you gotta love the wrestling magazine on the guy's dresser that's got Jerry the King Lawler, of course, so outstanding. But I did like how again they keep bringing in these other characters, and they bring in this Mayan expert who, for all practical purposes, is probably you initially think the guy's a fake until he starts pulling out the book, and you're like, no, this guy actually knows what he's talking about. He's got some of this, but Diana's got to step in because she knows the language. She knows the past. She knows all this stuff. And I love this sequence because this really was the final straw between Diana and Barbara. This was the end of the friendship because Barbara's realizing Diana wants to stop the wishes. So Barbara's going to lose everything. She does not want to lose it. She does not want to give up this newfound power that she has.
Yeah, and it's one of those pieces when you start to realize, whoa, you're going to do what? And I can see the attractiveness of that because to the point of what I said earlier, we've all been there before, where there's been a time in our life where we've wanted to be something more and almost wanted the easy path to it. If that makes sense, it's kind of like you want the lottery path to everything, right?
Yes,
I can get a ticket and then I'll just be this.
So everything will be good.
Right. Yes. And in truth, you never get where, I mean, look at our own path in life to, where we are career-wise. We're both lucky right now that we have, strong careers, and, we like our jobs, but our paths to getting to where we are now were bumpy. And in different ways, in various different ways. And, that's something where you kind of got to work through the bumpy path to eventually, hopefully, if you persevere and you keep working there and you keep the faith and kind of discover more about yourself and what you really want out of life along the way, you wind up hitting that point where you're like, I'm finally doing the thing that I want to do. May not have been what I originally thought I wanted to do, but I've hit that point. Barbara's looking for that. She wanted to be Diana all along and would have gotten there on her own. But, to her own Diana, quote unquote Diana.
Right.
But instead she took the easy path and you wind up being a shadow version because she's really not Diana. She doesn't have Diana's coat. She doesn't have Diana's... The things that really draw us to Diana, there's a distinction between the two. Yes, she has the physical strength, and yes, there's the magnetism now that's there from before, but clearly she's not Diana. And it's something that I loved that layer of this, where you kind of see, did you really get what you wanted? And they're all stuck with these wishes where the question is, did you really get what you wanted? Or did what you think you wanted play off the way that you thought it would? And that's it's an interesting message in this movie.
Oh yeah, and again, I like that moment because Trevor's starting to realize that Diana's losing her powers.
Yeah,
but also he's realizing that there's a realization with him that for her to get back her powers, she's got to give him up. And Diana's starting to realize that, and they're starting to, get that what she has to do if she wants to get her powers back. She's like, no, there's got to be another way. There's got to be another way. And I love seeing that initial reaction that both of them, especially Diana has, that I've got to figure out a different way of doing this. There's got to be a different way to stop him. If we can just stop him from making more wishes, it'll, save everything. It'll maybe fix things. I love that, seeing that. I don't want to say desperation because I don't think of them as desperate, but I do like it's that they so want to hold on to what they have. This is her love. This is the one thing she would only ever wish for would be for him to come back. And she doesn't want to give her true 100% purest heart's desire. And I love seeing that moments when she's got to do that.
Wait, and she'd give up her powers for him. Because here's the thing. I do not in any way, shape, or form feel that, she's not concerned about the power loss right now. She's concerned about stopping Max and wants to stop Max because she doesn't want the end of the world, and she knows that that's going to happen. But she's at the point where she's like, I've got this one thing that I want. And that's where the stone, it's the perverse, that's where the God's trick is. She's gotten the one thing that she wanted. She wanted Steve back. She's gotten that. Whether we, the nature of him being in another body or not, or how it came about, put that where it goes. She's gotten that piece. So she's faced with now, I don't want to give that up. Look at everything I've done, everything I've sacrificed for everyone else. I've only wanted this one thing, only this one thing, and why can't I have it? Yes, I see that, and yet you get the conundrum. I feel for her so much in this moment because we all know at this point where it's going. It's an example of where you can telegraph where a story's going, but yet you need to. Because part of the emotional journey of this is knowing that, like, oh, you two kids, I'm so sorry for you. This isn't going to work out. And we just know it's not going to work out. You don't know where or how, but you know this is not going to end well for the two of them, and yet you want it to. That's part of the disbelief, too.
And you're sitting there and you know that she's going to have to renounce her wish.
Yep.
You know that's how, at this point in time, I knew that was what's going to happen. But just when it does happen, it doesn't take away the moments. And just like, with Max and his son, I love those moments where, just again, he basically steals his kid's wish just for his own, I just wish for you to have, what you want, kind of thing, where it's, kind of, that selfless sacrifice with the kid who doesn't really completely understand what he's giving up. But Max, again, he still loves his son. And it's, he is still, you still get these glimpses of this pathetic guy who you're like, man,
He wants his kid to understand, too. That's it. And it's funny. He didn't want his kid to give the wish to him. Wasn't going for that because he actually said, no, 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 when the kid did that, because he wanted the kid to understand why what he was doing was correct. He's trying to get understanding from his kid because it's the only validation he wants. Like, he doesn't care about anybody else getting this at all.
Yeah.
Like, anybody else be damned. He doesn't care. He really doesn't care. His quest really is to have his kid, in the end, see his dad for being as great as he is. He wants the greatness. He wants that to be his legacy that he passes on to his kid. It's almost like legend and legacy passing on to his child is far more important than anything else. And he wants his kid to understand the importance of it because in his mind, his kid's going to inherit that from him. And he wants his kid to understand how important that is and how much dad worked at that and to be proud of his father and in awe of his father. He almost wants his kid to look at him the way that Minerva looks at Diana.
Yes. Yeah. And it's the funny thing is, we're watching this and we know the kid already does look at his father like he's awesome. The kid already does love his dad, and that's still his idol. And I, throughout this, I was so like, come on, kid, just tell him now. What if the kid earlier on said, Dad, but I already do respect you. I do love you. And if he would have said that earlier, would that have calmed Max down, or would it still have been this major obsession that he's got going? I don't know. And I like those thoughts that I have in my head about Max because, again, it makes him a sympathetic villain, but it doesn't completely excuse what he's doing. So I'm not like pushing aside and saying, oh, the poor guy, he's had a rough life. We've all had some rough life. And, it doesn't drive you to try to destroy the world. But it's, you understand that. And I like those, again, it's kind of like that duality thing that I like about Max. And part of the reason why I like they went with this character.
Yeah, he is super, I love the character. He's a really well done character. This sequence with Steve and Diana, he really realizes now how hard this has been for Diana. Because he addresses it here. He's like, Dan, I know how hard this has been for you. He sees the watch. He sees the ranch. He recognizes she's gone for years, which is something he can't relate to because that wasn't his experience. It was he died and then popped up again. So now she's really voicing the things that we all knew, but she hasn't had a chance to voice before, which is... It's this part. It's almost a sequence that leads me kind of speechless in how good it is. because she's breaking down like, listen, I've spent years, decades. We talked about it earlier. It's been decades. And all I've thought about is you and me together. I have given so much to the world during that time. And I have this shot for this. It is interesting. So in Wonder Woman 3, would you want a romantic interest for her? Other than Steve? Do we need one?
It's the only person in her life is Steve, and I think that'd be hard to come up with a different person for her. And again, like this sequence, one for me, I loved how it really did bring home why she's so desperate to hold on to Steve. This is the one thing she's wanted. And if further, you think back to the Justice League movie when Bruce brings up Trevor, and she's like, "Hey, don't go there," and she cuts him quick. Stopping that line of communication to the point when she pops his shoulder back in place, she doesn't do it gently, and it's a really cool moment. These sequences right here further add to why in the future Steve Trevor is still a sensitive subject for her, because she had this moment with him and she has to let it go. And right. Again, it was one of those neat things. I was like, oh, that is cool.
Yeah. Now, the Asteria sequence, the Greatest Warrior, I thought this so well done. I didn't realize until my second watch through that this was, at the Linda Carter character. Yes. I didn't realize that this was what it was. They introduced her at the end in the sequence, and I'm like, oh, it's cool that they made her an Amazon. I didn't connect it that she was the one that was in the armor. And then... Did you when the end sequence? Did you catch that it was her the first time? Cool.
I realized that. Yeah, and the actress, that's actually Linda Carter right there.
Yeah, I know.
Actually, and that was the thing, because the first watch through when she, in the end credits, I was like, oh my god, that is awesome. She was the Astra, and then then my second watch through, I watched that sequence carefully, going, that's actually her. They actually did put her in the armor. I was like, yes, so I loved that sequence, and I'm hoping Wonder Woman 3. Is she finally does meet up with her, because in this sequence she said she looked for her, could never find her, but found her armor. So I'm hoping Wonder Woman 3 we'd get Linda Carter and Gal Gadot together on screen together, because how awesome would that be? Yeah. That would be absolutely wonderful, and I would cheer seriously for that.
Yeah, do you think she's going to be good or bad?
Oh, she's good. Come on, that's and again, I think instead of a love interest, I think that's going to maybe be part of the connection. I personally, I don't know who's going to be the main villain. Personally, I would like to see Cheetah back as the main villain. And we'll get at the end there, with everything that happens to her, I'm like, I think they could very easily bring Barbara back, to be the villain in 3 and add Wonder Woman into the mix. So instead of a love interest, you've got this friend interest or who knows what not. I don't know, how what they play out. I think for me, that would be the dream sequence where Barbara is the primary villain and Linda Carter and Gal Gadot together on screen would be a great combo.
Yeah, I'm gonna be interested to see where this goes. I don't really have a big wish list for the next film, only because of the fact that I loved so much with the first two, flaws and all, that I just want. I want there to be a third film. I'm glad that this franchise is continuing. That was my biggest worry with COVID, was the fact that, okay, you don't have box office numbers to go off of. So they're putting a lot of faith in clicks. And I'm glad. I mean, because, streaming clicks are how many people watched it. And yes, a lot of people clicked on it Christmas. So great. Streaming numbers are showing. I know that, for movie purists, and I'm a movie buff. I love film. I don't want streaming to take the place of movie theaters. But here's the thing. Streaming is a thing now. Streaming services are a thing now. They are for television and for television seasons. They are a great vehicle for film that, maybe would be otherwise not noticed at the box office. This isn't one of those films. This is a movie blockbuster. But, for streaming services now to be able to leverage some of this and for us to continue to get this kind of content, especially in a pandemic year, this was a great film for Christmas Day in a pandemic year.
Oh, definitely. And I'll tell you, Max and the president.
Yep.
One of the things I was very pleased with that they didn't say this was Reagan. And even on IMDb, he's just listed as POTUS, President of the United States. They didn't say this is Ronald Reagan. Even though Reagan was the president then, because the wish he wishes for, I honestly don't think Reagan would have wished for war. He maybe would have wished for more nukes. He maybe would have wished for superiority over the Soviet Union. But that right there was, and again, that was just like a great wish, for him to go with. That it just, I can understand why someone, a president would make that wish, but it's interesting seeing how this all played out and what Max gets for it. He gets the power and influence of the president of the United States out of that one wish, to the point where the president is calling him sir. I loved this sequence just for that. Just because it's further showing just the corruption, the turning, the darkness growing in Max. This is really, again, right here, we've seen him do some nasty stuff. We've seen him do some bad stuff. Right here, this is that point where, he really crosses over into the evil category. And you start suspending the troubled childhood he had. And again, it's further, I liked how, they really play this out. They really start showing the corruption of the power. Power corrupts, absolute power corrupts, absolutely. We're really seeing Max get corrupted, where it's now he's going, hey, this thing that takes over all these other channels, it touches you? Wait a minute, I can touch everybody with this. And I love that sequence where he realizes how much more power he can get. And there's that blind power. He doesn't need any more. He's got the top, but he still wants more. And I love seeing that.
Yeah. It's and really to the point right now, more power for what reason? And that's where it really is a power grab for the sake of power at this point. He's become hungry for it. And you're right, corruption is absolutely the best piece of the puzzle here. For years, you've always heard that old adage, absolute power corrupts, absolutely, and all that type of thing. This really is seeing it play out for this person. I like that these are flawed people. All of them are flawed people. They've all, when I say flawed, humans are by their nature flawed. We all are. I'm flawed. You're flawed. We're all flawed. We all have our strengths and weaknesses. This is where this particular jewel prays, and that's the lie, right? And the curse of the god.
Yeah.
It plays off of natural human flaws and preys on them. That's where you make the mistake of trying to overcome your weaknesses with your wishes by giving up some of the pieces that are your strongest qualities or some of your strongest things that you have. In this case, poor Max is giving up his son, like the relationship with his son. He's completely missing right now that he's disenfranchised his kid and his thirst for power. It probably was the death of his marriage. His constant, scheming and all of that led to the death of his marriage. And he just hasn't gotten it. So that journey is something that, we're playing out and watching right here. Character development in a film, I think, is just so fascinating nowadays because a lot of times we're used to seeing this in these like shorter television miniseries now. It's one of the reasons why they're becoming so popular is because you can do that through a television miniseries in a way you can't in film. I'm all the more impressed when a film does it like this because, when Barbara shows up, totally expected, but that's because we know her by now. We saw how she was rejecting what Diana and Steve were saying, even though, Barbara knows it's true.
Well, subconsciously she does, but I did like this whole fight action sequence that they kept going through. And again, it's, character development and character strength within the fight sequences. I love those moments where Trevor is fighting and he can't shoot somebody. He can't use the sword. He's got to hold back, And even Diana, when she's in the middle of this great fight between, again, the fight choreography they did throughout this was absolutely wonderful, and all of these different sequences, especially I love this sequence between Cheetah and Wonder Woman. This for me was a great great choreography, great fight sequences between them, and I love how Cheetah is willing to sacrifice innocent people, and Diana in the middle of the fight has to protect people. And again, it's that whole classic superhero weakness that you've got to protect the innocent while you're beating up the bad guy. I love these moments because, again, it's further showing the fall of Barbara Minerva and the rise of Cheetah. And this was the final moments of Barbara's, being her. This is really where she starts becoming more of the monster, and I loved it.
Yeah, I agree.
And again, also I liked when Max tries to tempt, Trevor, and of course he can't. Because Steve Trevor is above and beyond that kind of stuff, and plus he knows the penalty, he knows the price, he knows that it's not just a it's not a freebie, it's not just a person, just the there's no price, there's no such thing as a free lunch is what I was going for, and I love the fact that Trevor can fight that, and Trevor knows that, and again, it's character showing his personality, showing who he is and what he's about, and I love that. That was awesome.
I did too. The characters at this point, and this is where you want to converge them. They're so well developed at this point that you want to see action sequences with Cheetah. Diana's still continuing to fight and using really her training and skills to survive Cheetah, who's really more powerful than her at this point, but doesn't have the same level of training Diana does. So she understands her powers and how to use them, Cheetah, how much of that did she inherit from Diana? It's kind of like the natural confidence, right, of being able to walk on the heels and things. How much of that is come from her wish that she's picked up some of Diana's combat training? Because she's doing some moves on Diana pretty quickly, which she wouldn't have had combat training for.
Right, and also part of it is, I think, just you think about it, when she started getting this strength, when she started doing all that, she started thinking, what can I do? And again, she's an intelligent person. And
sure.
You can't take away the intelligence from her. And when you have a multiple doctorate level intelligence that Barbara has, you do think faster than the everyday person like you and me. So I think part of that is playing into that as well. But there is definitely it's kind of neat because Diane is able to keep up with her, and even though she's much weaker, because she has that combat training, because she has that strength, because she has that that muscle memory of knowing how to fight. Barbara is still at the weaker side of that because of what she's lacking. But in the end, it was an awesome fight sequence. I loved this, and I loved just again how confident, how set she is like saying, "Hey, this is who I am. I am. No one can lay a hand on me. This is the great moment. I love this."
Well, and the other thing is too, she falsely accuses Diana of always having had everything. It's not true. Yeah. Diana's had to hide in the shadows. She has never really had the chance to be who she really is around anyone. Since Steve, really. She's had to hide that. And Wonder Woman hasn't been a public figure. And we're seeing that now, which is something we knew in the other films. But, we're seeing the why. In this sequence. So, she's really had to constantly live a life of hiding. I love Steve here in this sequence because he's trying to protect Diana against someone who he can't possibly do it. He sees how hurt she is and never gives up. I love that courage in those moments.
Yes. And I love the moments between Diana and Barbara where they're like, Barbara, what have you given up? Your humanity and compassion. It's like, what have you given up? And she knows exactly. She gave up her strength. She gave up her power for Steve. And again, I love that again, this is really starting to build in the realization for Barbara, for Diana to get her power back. She's got to give up Steve. She's got to renounce the wish to get their powers back. And I love just how it's building to that point. We know what's going to happen. When they first were, in the, in that first shaman the Mayan expert guy, when they first started talking about having to renounce your wishes, or society ends, we know what was going to happen, but they still keep playing. I love that, man. I love that build to that moment.
Right. So it's an interesting sequence. Now, with what's happened with the nuclear weapons is an interesting piece, because this is where this film really does take on an 80s theme, because this is something, I mean, my gosh, in the 80s, nuclear weapons were terrifying, which it's funny now. I'm not saying that they aren't any less terrifying now, but there was a real worry in the 80s of the button being pushed at any point in time. Maybe we should be still as worried about that, but, the Cold War and the fact that, we had Russia and the United States basically standing on edge with this, it was a scary era to live in with this type of thing. And you're seeing now that exponentially the amount of weapons have been increased, and you've got another country that is really basically saying, U.S. is gearing up to attack us. We're going to make sure to take them out too. And that was really the mentality. If you're going to take us out, we're taking you out too.
We got to fire. We have to fire first.
Right.
Was always the mindset, going back into this. And you think back to, I'm remembering back to then with the missile program, how it kept growing, and people kept saying, "Oh, we're always going to be living in fear of nuclear war." And there was a lot of fear going on with this. And I love seeing this terror and everything that's going through with this, and just the fall of society. Because you think back to when they first started talking about, what the stone did, like with the Mayans, and what it did for everybody. Every society that had the stone fell and disappeared off the face of the earth. Well, now we have the U.S. has this stone. Now it's the U.S.'s fault. It's the U.S. is falling apart. And I love these moments between Diana and Steve when he's like, you know what you got to do. And it tugs at the heartstrings. It tears you up, and she's holding on to the fact, no, I can't. Yeah, this sequence was just, it breaks your heart watching it. And I absolutely, again, it's one of those things where this was some solid quality acting that these two are doing.
Yeah, and that's really what it is. It's the solid quality acting. This sequence was this was a tear. My wife was like tearing up during this, and I was too, because I cared about these two at this point in time, and I didn't want to see him go. No, because I like them playing off each other. It's buddy cop, Yeah, I love buddy cop films, and it's because, if they're done really well, the relationship's important. These two are a great team, and you feel for this moment, and yet she's doing the right thing here. She's absolutely 110% doing the right thing, but he's being the stronger one, because basically what he's saying is, let me go. He's seen this wonderful world, and he's like, I've lived my life. I've got to put you in the world first, which is what he did in the first film. So he's being true to character in what he's doing here, and basically saying, you got to let me go. It's the only way this is going to work. And even when he says, I'll always love you, Diana, in that moment. This sequence, gets really cool, because you see the emotion on her face, and this it turns into from tears to anger to power to, just everything built up in her. She starts running faster and faster, renouncing her wish. She starts healing. Yep. Her body starts healing, and just everything that they really did with this. I was like, man, this was a cool sequence, because again, it really does show. They did a great range of emotion, and I love just again. She takes this moment, and this is where she first really starts to fly. Yeah, she starts to figure out how to fly, and I thought that for me was just a really cool moment. A gift from Steve, because understanding Steve's ability to fly, knowing she figures out here that she's had this inherent ability all along and didn't know it. Yeah. Steve helps her with this whole way, and she learns something new about her powers and her abilities in a way that was such a cool way to do it. I love that it's Steve's words. It's only wind and air. Yeah. And again,
visually, the aspects of this was absolutely beautiful. This is another sequence where I wish I would have been able to see it in a big screen. I think this on the big screen would have been, it looks awesome, and I love this, but it probably would have looked epic on a big screen with just her, on the clouds and just the way they did everything.
I've considered renting a theater for this because it's like $100, I think, or something like that, to rent this room. You know what I mean?
No, I didn't know we could do that.
Yeah, they do that to theaters now. This is only going to be a COVID thing, but right now you can. It might be a little over 100. I think it depends on the movie, but I mean, it's in that range. I'm not far off on the range. You can rent a showing ahead of time, and what it is it's you and like up to like 10 people or 20 people or something like that. It's your private screening, so you can invite who you want to it. You pay for the screening. And I don't know, for $100, I'd do it for 2 people. I really would. I mean, it's because I want to see this on the big screen. For something like this, I kind of want to do it just because right now I'm really worried about movie theaters the same way I'm worried about comic shops and things like that. And I want to see this on the big screen. So I'm like, well, this is a movie that it would be worth. I don't know what the cost is. I have to find out. What that is, but a lot of this is to combat the fact there's not a lot of new movies coming out.
Yeah,
that are theater specific. So, in that circumstance, I'm like, well, geez, I can help the theaters, and to a certain extent, I think for them it helps stop some of the bleeding. It's certainly not going to catch them up, but I'd love to rent a showing and watch this because this movie, so much of it, I want to see on the big screen. And I think
it is something that you do. I do want to see that way. And again, even as the sound, because for me, there's some of the music moments. Again, some of those fight sequences, I would love to see. Just in that big theater and have the surround sound hit you and all that. I mean, you can feel the action.
This sequence with her, you see where Cheetah's fully gone to at this point. I don't want to be like anyone anymore. She's so resentful of Diana. I want to be an apex predator like nothing anyone's ever seen. She's so bitter and feels so betrayed by Diana because she looks at what Diana was doing as a double standard. Diana was lecturing her, and she's like, but you've done the same thing. So who are you to chastise me? And there's a point to that. There is a point to what she's saying. I think some of Cheetah's words affected Diana as well, besides just Steve's. Where Steve was like the exclamation point on probably what Diana was already feeling in those moments. Just that part of the film, I think, is just so great. This Star Wars program stuff where you want this to work for me, don't you? And the guy's like, yeah.
Stole his wish. That stinks. And again, this is one of the things about how making Max as powerful as he was. Yep. Using this wish, whereas, in the comic he had that mind control and all the mental powers that he had and all that, and how he basically took over Superman. And you see that level, again, to me, this puts on an equal kind of level of the power.
Yes, it does.
And I really like, again, this was something I really like. Now, I like the comic book version. That Max is awesome. That's a great villain. But for me, this villain here, had it is a great story. And it was a good, this was a really ultimate villain for her to face, especially you think about it. Wonder Woman's true power isn't just strength. It's not just, athletics or any of that stuff. Her true power is love and compassion. And that's always been. Plus also the truth. And I love how she even talks about how the power of the lasso isn't her. It's the truth. That's the absolute truth is the power of the perfect. And I love those kind of moments that we get, on Wonder Woman, where we see more of just not beautiful woman who punches you really hard, and we're starting to see this in with all these people, all these wishes that are flying around, all this stuff, all these ramifications, this quick, pain and suffering that is happening because of this. One, he wishes his wife was dead and she's falling over with a heart attack, wishing that all his buddies are all busted. I wish for money. I wish for missiles. All these different wishes that are playing up. You're like, man, this is really the beginning of the end. She is riding
she's riding the lightning.
Yeah.
I'm in awe of that. I'm sorry, I'm not like trying to cut you off. I'm just seeing this sequence where she's doing that, and I don't want to miss noting that she's flying and riding the lightning. She's using the lasso to ride the lightning. It was super cool. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. That was not discounting anything you were just saying. It was just one of those sequences. I'm like, I don't want to ignore the fact that I'm just watching this woman ride lightning on a film, and it's breathtaking that like our special effects technology is at a point where it looks so believable.
Yeah, it looked real.
Yes.
You go back to older movies and you can see the green screen effects and all that stuff. Here it's 100%, right along with it. And a lot of and even these sequences, eventually where we're going to see Barbara in her cheetah form, it still looked awesome. I love, again, the technical side of this, the special effects that they're running with this is absolutely wonderful. And add to it, just again, this is a really monumental story they're telling here with all these wishes coming in. And you see the absolute corruption of Max, and you go back to his kid in danger. You go back to the person he's doing all this for is his son wishing, Dad, I wish you were here. I wish you were here.
And he can't because his son already made his wish.
Exactly.
So his son's wish isn't working. That's why in the end, when Max does say to him, you didn't need to wish for that, you couldn't wish for that. You already used your wish.
Now, Diana flying in, the golden armor, golden wings. I know you cheered because I know I did. Yeah. I love this sequence. That initial scene of her coming in. This is another scene. I'm like, dang it, I wish I could see this on the big screen because this looks awesome.
This is also a sequence where I really like the music. So it's funny when Jeremy was asking about the music. I get what he's saying, and this isn't disputing him over it, but there are sequences where I really liked the music, and this is one of them. I really thought the music here the instrumental music in particular was particularly sharp. I bought the soundtrack for the instrumental music. The rest of it, the 80s, it's hard. Like Guardians of the Galaxy set a pretty hard bar for me on soundtracks. Like I've got to own. Really,
that's the highest level of any soundtracks. I think Suicide Squad did a pretty good job with it, but it's still not Guardians.
No, that was the mixtape. The whole concept of it, I'm like, oh my god, that's so geeky cool, because it was so well put together and integrated. That it's hard to... That's set a really high bar these days. Yeah. This fight with her and Cheetah is really, really good. Because you're dealing now with this apex predator who is like a step up above her. So even the armor now is... the armor...
the armor's going to help. And it's, but also one of the things I liked about this fight being, you can tell Diana's holding back. She's not trying to hurt Cheetah.
Right.
And because this is still her friend, she's trying to reach her. And again, it's that whole Wonder Woman compassion thing.
Yep.
She's taking a defensive position, and Cheetah's going on the offense. So it's kind of hard to not, to not get hurt if you're not swinging back, if you're not fighting. She's blocking, she's avoiding contact, she's doing whatever she can to not hurt Barbara. And I love this. Again, the choreographer, whoever did their fight choreography did a beautiful job with laying out all these different fight sequences. Just again, little pieces like that where you start seeing pieces of the armor fall off. You see parts of the wing coming off. You see her benting and dinging up the armor and fighting to the point where Diana's like, I gotta hurt you now. I can't hold back anymore. I've got to do this. And I love this how Diana the whole time she's trying to reason with her, trying to reach her friend, trying to bring her back, but it comes a time when you got to throw a punch and you got to make her hurt. And again, a great story being told in violence.
Yes, absolutely. And to the point that, yes, she's got her compassion, but Diana's like, I've got to. I love Diana. I like sitting here like, I had to renounce my wish and so do you. Nothing good is born from lies, Diana. From Barbara, I'm sorry. We're wasting time. And she's like, even now you're patronizing me. Yeah. Barbara has not hit that point, and I don't know if she ever will, hit that point where she will come into her own. She's She's constantly convinced Diana's not looking down on her. She's not patronized. She's really not patronizing her in those moments because Diana's been there. She's been where Barbara is. So she's sharing it from experience, not patronizing her. She just did this. It's not like, Barbara, I was so above this. She wasn't. She went through the same doggone thing. So that's the fascinating part about this whole thing. She's saying that Diana was patronizing her. No, she is not. The lasso swinging around fight sequence, the fluidity of that, like how natural their body movement is. To your point about choreography, both of them, there is a definite flow. Cheetah, and one of the things I like, and this isn't taking anything away from Diana, Diana looks more human. Cheetah in her movements in this sequence looks a lot more like, my gosh, there's an animalistic, kind of grace.
Yep.
To what she's doing, and I liked the distinction that was apparent there. Takes nothing away from Diana's skills. It adds to the fact that she's fighting something that's, to the point of what Barbara was saying, is an apex predator. It's out otherworldly. Nobody is like her. And you're right. I wouldn't mind seeing more of Diana and Cheetah in the next film if it goes there.
I think this should be a great, full-on villain. Be the primary villain against Diana. I think that would be awesome because, again,
I want Ares. Ares. I want Ares. Next film. Ares? If you're asking me who I want to, I'm not saying I don't want Cheetah in it. I'm saying I want Ares to be the main villain. I'd love to see them do something with the gods. They set up here nicely, the gods, and I'm not. Here's the thing. In Patty Jenkins, we trust, and the whole crew.
Yes, exactly.
I really don't care what they do. So let me put that caveat on this piece. But if you were to ask me, like, are you gunning for a particular villain? You're gunning for Cheetah, which respect. There's a lot more story to be told with her, so I agree with you. If you were to ask me who I would want, my number one choice would be, I would love to see her versus Ares, just because I like the god stuff in Wonder Woman. But I don't know. I want to absorb whatever story they want to tell me because these first two films have been that good.
Yeah. Completely trust the creative on this. So let's rock and roll. And one of the things I loved about this as we start leading into the final sequence, the final showdown between Max and Diana, I really do like the fact that it wasn't a punch to the face or a snap of the neck that ended this. Now, in the comic, don't get me wrong, I love that sequence when she's got him wrapped up in the magic lasso and Max is like, I'm not going to release Superman. I'm not going to do it. I'm in the lasso. I'm telling you the truth. I'm never going to release him. And so Diana takes the only option she knows and snaps the neck, kills him. I love that scene in the movie, but I'll tell you something. In the comic, I love this sequence where she's actually fights and beats the bad guy, not with violence, but with compassion and the truth. Throughout this has always been about the truth. Even from the very beginning, that very first sequence that she learned as a little girl, it was about the truth, how she cheated. She took the shortcut. She didn't truly win the contest. That's why she didn't win it. And here, the truth is, you can't sacrifice, you don't get the free wish for nothing. There is the price for everything. And what is your true heart's desire doesn't come from this wish. And I love just that how they kept going back to what is the truth? What is compassion? What is the honesty? And I love just, again, seeing Diana fight this, not with physical violence, but with, the one power of, her true power, what I always consider Wonder Woman's true power, compassion and love. It was a great sequence. And even when you think she's down, you think she's lost, she still rises up. She still finds a way. It was awesome.
Right. It's the sequence here where he's trying to appeal to her. Hey, you gave something up. I can give you it all back. Because he, obviously for him, it's like, you come over to my side of things, I would much rather give you your prize back because of what I'm going to get from it. And that's what it is. He's so obsessed with what he's wanted and getting what he wants. It's basically a statement on the culture of take, take. He's not giving anything. He's taking. Even when it is an appearance of giving, it's still a take. And
and again, her pleas and her arguments, and I loved how initially I personally thought she was trying to reach him, trying to talk to him, trying to get him to renounce his wishes. And we find out later, like, no, I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to all the people who you're connected to now. And that for me was just a great Diana. That was a great Wonder Woman moment.
You can only have the truth, and the truth is enough. This world was already a beautiful place. The truth is beautiful. These are pieces where she's speaking right now. So look at this world and look at what your wish is costing it. Basically telling them all, you must be the hero. Only you can save the day. And she is, I love that in this moment, it looks like she's talking to Max at first. She's pleading with all of them to renounce their wishes to save the world. I love that.
Yeah. Oh, God, yeah. Yeah, and again, I love her acting that she's giving on this.
Yep.
Because you feel her heartbreak, you feel her emotion. I love how she did have that, the tear running down, because she's thinking about what she lost and what she had to give up. There's these moments that you get, and it's a raw, true emotion. And I loved it. You had quality acting going on in a superhero movie.
I love this, though, because you're not the only one who suffered. You're not the only one who wants more and who wants them back. And I love that she's like appealing to them, and they can feel the truth through the lasso. She's sharing the truth through Max because Max has touched them. He is connected to them.
Yeah. So, and again,
do you think Cheetah renounced her wish or not?
No.
Okay.
I don't think she did.
Right, because it's deliberately not. I mean, we don't see her on screen having renounced the wish, so we don't know whether she did or she didn't. I love this journey back to Max's childhood because we get to actually see a little bit of what drove him. That he was from an abusive family, and what that meant to him. He was humiliated and treated poorly by his father. So he's got a lot of reasons, and shunned by kids, bullied at school, clearly. He's got reasons to want to be something more. He's always dreamed and hoped of that. So you can kind of understand it, and that wasn't when he was a little kid. It was as he grew older, it continued to the point where he even put up this black gold company that was a
Ponzi scheme.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. It was a Ponzi scheme. It was completely, fabrication, lies, and whatnot. So it's, and I liked, again, I thought it was awesome how they really built him and they showed why he did what he did.
Yep.
And, they were giving Max this, redemption. And I'll tell you, some of the stuff I've seen from people and heard from people that's something they didn't like, that he had this redemption. But for me, again, because it's the Wonder Woman movie, I liked that. I liked the fact that we did get this moment where we could, see a redemption of this character. We can see him learn from his mistakes and actually, make right by what he did. Now, is there going to be further consequences to Max? Yes. I don't know. Is that something we're going to find out later on? But it's kind of a neat, again, showing the level of the truth, the strength of truth, compassion, love, the things that we need in this world desperately. We're seeing how it can actually affect the world, how it can actually change the world. And it was kind of a neat moment for me.
What redemption is there for him? I mean, he gives up. He renounces his wish to be the stone to save his son. I get that. But he still did everything he did.
Right. Well, there's still a price he's going to have to pay for what he did. But as you start looking at it, he starts understanding what he did. Right. And when he started the trend of renouncing the wish, that leads possibly to other people renouncing their wishes as well. That was the beginning of the connection.
I would agree.
So there's part of the redemption. That's why I say the redemption of Max Lord, in that he starts becoming an okay guy again. But it's, he does there's a price he's going to have to pay for what he did. There's a lot of blood on his hands, and that's something that I wonder if they would address that in Wonder Woman 3, or what they'll do with that, or how it'll play out. But it's. You do start seeing all these people say, I renounce my wish. I renounce my wish. And part of it is Max doing it. But part of it also is the people realizing the truth. So there is kind of a nice play that way.
He did have the lasso around his ankle.
Right.
So, I mean, it's one of those things where he was faced with a different level of truth because of the lasso as well.
Yeah.
So it's funny. Diana said she wasn't talking to him, and that's true. She was using the connection to talk to the others, but the lasso was connected to him, which means that truth was running through him with the way we know the lasso works. So it's an interesting sort of piece off of that. I'm not downplaying the redemption aspect of it, but the question is, with everything he's done, is that act alone? We wouldn't be in that position if he hadn't absorbed it, if he hadn't done what he did with the stone. So
exactly,
redemption is something for him. I'm with you. Actually, we're saying the same thing. I would be happy to see more Max Lord and where that goes with him, because, boy, and I don't know how much of it we're going to see because of, the fact that this is done on film on big screen. That may be a big thing. It may be a minor thing. He has played such a cool character that I'm with you. I care about seeing more. I'd like to see where this goes. The kid and him are so great in that sequence. If you don't like at this point in time the kid, I don't think the sequence means as much, but I do like the kid. I like the fact that if I'm this kid, I want to punch him upside the head, but yet it's his dad, and he makes this point to him. The kid makes this point to him that you don't understand. You are my dad, and I'm so glad. I wished you'd come. I knew it would work, and it goes back to what I said, that it wasn't really the wish that brought him here, because he didn't have a wish anymore. Yeah. And I like that Max acknowledges that. And it's to your point where, like, he's learning a lesson and he's starting to become a better guy. Okay, so let's talk about the redemption piece, seeing as you're talking about that. What would it take? How would is there a redemption for Max? What does that look like? Because in my mind, true redemption is you somehow begin genuinely making up for what you did. And is this act alone redemption? Or what would his path be? Is there a path for him? Because there's got to be a consequence to this, right?
Yes. Well, and you think about it, he was a con man before this, so he's got to make up for what he stole, what he swindled out of people, everything that he took from somebody for within his wishes. He's got to make amends on that. And so how do you make amends on what he did? It's a dedication of his life to the greater good is the only way you make amends on this. Because in reality, I don't know how much jail time he'll get for this, because there was some illegal stuff going on, but I don't know how much you can put directly on him. And that's a legal question, I'm thinking, but it's on a personal and emotional, on a spiritual kind of level. He's got amends he has to make for what he did, what he caused. And that will come through time. That only come through, being the guy that guy that right there that was hugging his son, that wanted the world to be a better place at that moment in time. He's got to continue being that guy for the rest of his life. That's how you make amends. That's how you truly make up for the darkness that he caused, by bringing the equal amount of light, to the world.
Right. And it's an interesting thing. As we're closing out the film, we get to see the sequence where now the guy's back, the guy that Steve was inhabiting his body, and he's back in this outfit, and it's like, well, my friends don't like this outfit, but it's kind of a good outfit, right?
Well, that's the outfit Diana picked for Steve.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
And I like that. Again, these were some good moments, and I even like, you think back to when Steve and Diana were talking, and he's like, hey, you got to love again. Hey, you can love this guy. She's like, I don't want him. I want you. And you get this great sequence between the two of them, and it's like, you mentioned, could she have a love interest again? I don't know. On one hand, part of me says she'll never love anyone else again, and she flat out says, I will never love again. But can she figure it out? Can she maybe work it out? Could there maybe be a Bat and Wonder Woman relationship, in the future? Because they had some moments of, flirtation in the Justice League movie. Could there be something between them? I don't know. I think, definitely, again, this was some of the sequences where I really wanted to see in a Wonder Woman 3. I wanted to see how, Diana grown after this, whether it's, I'm thinking Wonder Woman 3 would be after the Justice League movie, and that kind of continuation on there, or would Wonder Woman 3 be before the Justice League movie? I don't know how they're going to play it out. Again, as you said, I trust this creative team, so let's rock it. And that sequence that they showed Barbara, they never actually heard her say, I renounce my wish. She lost the cat stuff because that's what she got from Max. But I don't think she ever renounced the wish. I think she still has all of Diana's powers. I think
No. Hold on. The Apex Predator powers. Remember, she said she no longer wants to be like anybody else. So it's not Diana's powers anymore. She's something else.
No, I think she lost those powers because when Max renounced his wish, she lost the Apex Predator stuff. I think she still has the powers she got that she initially wished for. Because for her to give up her Diana powers, she would have to renounce her wish. And I don't think she ever did.
But
she lost.
I don't know. Hold on. Because Max was the stone, though, that doesn't. She still made the wish on the stone. He became the stone.
She got her powers before Max became the stone. So she got her powers from the original stone, not the new stone.
It's the same stone.
But I think
all right, see here, that might be where this might be where we're different. Here, I think so. Here's where we're at. I mean, let's just sum this up because this might be where we have a disagreement, and it's fine. In your mind, you're thinking she still has Diana's powers that she grabbed before. My mind, she didn't renounce the wish of being the Apex Predator. She still got that. She's still Cheetah. In my mind, she's still Cheetah.
But she no longer has the cat. That's why I'm thinking she lost the Apex Predator stuff.
How do you know that she can't? How do you know she can't switch between both?
I don't think she can.
How do you know?
That's me making an assumption that she can't. When she was in cat mode, that was permanent cat mode. And as we're talking, of course, the great scene with Linda Carter, making her appearance. And I love this scene. It was a great end credits scene where initially she catches it, and you're like, "Oh, okay, is that Diana?" No, it's Linda Carter. I cheered. I still cheer. Second time watching it, I cheered. Right now, as we're talking about it, I'm cheering. I love the fact that she's in this movie.
I do too. She looks great too.
Yeah, oh God, yeah. She always and you think back to the fandom when she was on the Wonder Woman 84 panel. I just thought she was on there just because she's Linda Carter and she's awesome.
Yep.
I never once thought she was going to be in this movie. This was a complete swerve for me. I was like, man, that is awesome. But okay, going back to the previous discussion with Minerva with Cheetah. Mm-hmm. Her initial wish, the wish she made, I wish for blank, was to be like Diana.
Correct.
And if she doesn't renounce it, she doesn't lose it.
But why does she... Okay, let me ask you a question, though. When did she renounce the Cheetah wish?
I don't think she did. That wasn't a Cheetah wish, because you only get one wish. That was Max saying...
But hold on. Max as the stone...
Gave it to you.
See, this is where I disagree with you. Max was the stone. The stone gave her the ability to make another wish. He let her have another wish. So that I think the Cheetah wish still exists. We might have to agree to disagree on this one.
Yeah.
But how did she... But wait, you're saying there was no other wish.
Another wish.
Wait, Jim.
I think it was...
But then how did she become Cheetah?
Okay, so Max has... when you're the stone, you give the wish and you take something.
Correct.
I think he was taking stuff from people and pumping it into Barbara to make her this Apex Predator.
Oh,
that's how I think. So that's how I took it. That it was it was basically upgrades to her person.
Okay.
That made her be the Cheetah.
I don't
That's
see.
where
I don't. Here's the thing. I don't
is.
see. I
I'll be
don't.
honest with you. If I'm wrong, cool.
But I don't see it that
Yeah.
way. But here's the thing. I see the logic to what you're saying. I'm like saying, I'm like, well, that's an interesting take. So I agree with. I actually agree that your take is a possibility. So I'm not going to disagree with that. Actually, that's part of the fun of this. So I'm like, oh, that's kind of an interesting theory. I don't know that I disagree with it. I still think she's Cheetah. Some of that might.
Definitely.
Here's the
We're both
difference.
in agreement on that. She still has powers.
Well, but I didn't see her as Cheetah when she had Diana's powers. I saw her as Cheetah when she became the apex predator.
Well, see, for me, because when she had Diana's powers, that's when she lost her humanity, and that's when she becomes. To me, that's when she becomes the Cheetah.
She really renounces her humanity when she's like, I don't want to be like anybody else. I want to be something different. I want to be an apex predator. And that's where it really goes to that level.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. Everything we're debating here right now is adding more weight to the fact that there's a lot more storytelling to do with Cheetah.
Exactly. That's why I like to see her as the main villain.
Right. Everything we're talking about here, I'm actually intrigued by. So it's not even like, this isn't even really an argument. That's where I'm kind of like catching myself. I don't really care about winning this argument. I have my own mind on what I think my theory is right now for it, but it's not one of those theories where I'm like, this theory's right and it's got to be the only theory. I could care less about that. I'm interested and intrigued. So like when you're shouting out your theory, I'm like sitting here like, well, that's really an interesting theory. I don't think that's what's happened, but it's also a theory where I'm like, I don't think that's what happened, but if that's what happened, I'm perfectly like, it's an interesting logical theory that I would be very happy with if that's actually what it is. So I don't care. There's a whole it's funny, you were talking about how like you would love Cheetah to be the main villain next film. You're like sitting here really giving a reason why she could be. As I'm looking through this, I'm like, this debate is like, you could do a whole movie around this. Sure you could. Or have another villain, have Cheetah continue to be a foil of some sort. How would you feel about a redemption story where Cheetah and Diana somehow become friends?
I would be okay with that.
Because they've had that in comics before too, where their relationship is a very interesting relationship, where it's sometimes they're friends, sometimes they're not. It's
sometimes even when they're enemies, there's still that friendship kind of thing going on.
Yeah, it's a very interesting relationship that I think has become more complex over time, and it's interesting. So, overall on this film, how do you rank this one on rewatchability? Because to me, that's kind of my measuring stick on these films. I'm never one. I don't know that there's any film that I think is perfect or flawless. There's always things in any film that I watch, but I've come to learn that there's a lot of films that I think are great films, that are award-winning films and things like that are 1 or 2 time watches, and I'm pretty much done. I can appreciate them for their contribution and for their art and what they were, but it's not a film that I can watch 10 or 20 times. For me, this film is, at least so far, and even for this conversation right now, I'm like the first film I've watched multiple times. I'm at the point where I watched it so often that I couldn't count. Not saying that I watched it 70 times or anything, but I just watch it now. I'm not keeping like a ticking counter of it. I think this is going to become one of those films where I watch the first one and it naturally bleeds into wanting to watch the second one, because this was so good that sometimes a sequel waters down the first movie, where you're like, I'm not as interested in the first movie now because I've seen the sequel, and I'm like, well, this is fun. It was fun to revisit it again, but we watched Home Alone 2, for example, which there's similarities in the plot between 1 and 2. I like both movies. I love watching the kid. My wife and I watched it. We had a fun time watching it. They're fun films. But like when you watch the first one and the second one now, it's like you can see how there's elements of the first movie. Everything was like a vehicle to get him to doing pranks on these 2 criminals, right? And it's enjoyable for what it is. And I really like those movies, but there's a little watered down nature to the sequel. This one, it's so unique from the first movie that I really feel like it's kind of like what I liked about Guardians of the Galaxy 1 and 2. It's a continuation of a larger story. So for me, there's a rewatchability in this that is pretty high. I feel I'm going to watch this over and over again, and we'll see if that ends up being the case. So it's high marks on this film because there's a lot of superhero movies that I don't feel that way about. Not deliberately, it's just I haven't had this drive to go back and watch it like multiple times. This one I do. I'm like, even after this conversation, I want to rewatch it again just because it's fun. It's fun. What about you? Where are you at with this one?
It's funny. I didn't realize that they were streaming this only until the 24th of January. I was expecting I'd have more time. So I'm now probably going to buy this so I can watch it anytime I want to. Because initially I wasn't planning on, buying it because I'm like, hey, I can see it on HBO Max. Well, they're taking that away from me. So I'm like, you know what? I think I'm going to own this because I want to watch it when I want to. And I want to do a Wonder Woman marathon, where I'm going to do Wonder Woman 1 and Wonder Woman 2. And I'm doing back to back. As I've said multiple times throughout this, I want a Wonder Woman 3. I'm really into this. I really dig this movie. It's one of those things where I'm recommending this movie to people because I think it was a fun movie. I think it was a good movie. I think it was a great superhero movie, and it's a great Wonder Woman movie because we get plenty of action, but we got to see the true power of Wonder Woman. The love and compassion, those are my favorite stories in Wonder Woman, when we see that kind of stuff. When we see her solve a problem without her fists. I think that is just the great thing about Wonder Woman. And it's actually even some of the great Superman moments. I love when you see the dun-da-da moments of Superman. Well, that's the kind of the dun-da-da moments for Wonder Woman, when she can do that. When she solves a problem in her distinct manner. Her distinct way. And again, this movie with those lasso effects, oh god, I absolutely loved all those lasso effects. Just how she's using the lasso as a weapon, and now just with the birth of her flying, and I want to see more. And again, with me with wanting Cheetah is just because there's so much more they could do between those two relationships. They could have the redemption of Barbara Minerva in the third movie. That very easily could be. And again, to your point, it could be the gods trying to corrupt Barbara. Maybe Barbara is seeking the power that she had, that apex predator power. Maybe she's seeking those, she doesn't want to just be what she is. She wants more. And she's got that hunger for what she had before, and she's trying to find it. And maybe we can even get more of the traditional comic book, where she finds the one artifact, and that's what gives her cheetah powers and all that. And that's what brings back the cheetah version of Barbara. And there could 100% be a redemption of Barbara Minerva. I think it'd be awesome, a great story they could tell. But to be honest, as we said, I trust this creative team. They give me another story, I'm all in, just because I've had two great movies from them.
It's funny. I was jumping on iTunes Store to see if it's even available for purchase. It's not available for purchase yet. So I don't know. I think that's one of the things with this new kind of streaming release and things like that. Trying to figure out when do you put it for sale, versus when it's in the theaters. And I don't know how much of that is a deal they worked out with movie theaters to try and appease them for this. The movie theater. I'm talking about the big parent companies,
right?
Because that's a big controversial part right now. It's like you're releasing these on streaming and in the theaters at the same time. In certain markets, ours being a key one of them, and it's hitting the movie theaters, obviously, because it is affecting the amount of people going out to the movie theaters, although I think that's COVID's doing that just as much. So, I know COVID's doing that just as much. So the film's going to get hit either way. So it's an interesting, this is a proven delivery model. What's going to be interesting to see is what this looks like post-COVID. And I mean, it's a year from now. What are we going to be talking about with movies? And
I hope we're able to go back. I hope that this doesn't kill the movie theater.
I agree.
Because to be honest, the only reason I didn't see this in the movie theater was because of COVID. I have too many people high risk in my family, in my immediate circle, that I can't in good conscience risk getting anything going on in public, being around people, just to watch this movie. Now, I want to see it on the big screen. I do want that. I wish I could figure out, we could figure out a way to do that, because I guess this movie would be awesome on the big screen. But I'm not going to risk my family for that. And that's the sole reason I'm doing this. So once this COVID nonsense is all done, and we're actually able to go out and be around people and be in groups and stuff like that, I'm not going to pick streaming over going to the movie theater for these big epic movies like this. But I'll be honest with you, there are probably some other movies maybe I would do more streaming on. Maybe I would do, this kind of stuff. Because I've got now with HBO Max, maybe I will do this more. I don't know. It's one of those things where this has opened up. I've opened up the Pandora's box on streaming. Since this stuff has started happening, I'm doing more streaming. I'm doing more digital. I'm doing more of the at-home entertainment kind of stuff. And I see it continuing. But it's just one of those things where I don't know exactly where it's going to play out.
Yeah. That's an interesting piece to see moving forward. And I think this is symptomatic of the comic industry. It's, I think they're all facing this kind of issue. It's, going to comic shops and things like that right now. I like going in and browsing stores. For a lot of the reasons you're saying, I'm an educator. I work in education right now. I go to work every day, even though I've had COVID, right? And I've mentioned it on the show before. So technically, I'm supposed to be, and this is not me making light, but I'm supposed to be bulletproof. I can't get it, and I can't give it to people right now because I've got the antibodies, right? I still am very well aware. I'm not a conspiracy theorist or things like that. It's not my wheelhouse. But I'm well aware of the fact that they're still figuring out things about this disease, right? This virus, that people get, better way to term it. And I don't know how much they really do know about that. How long you're, quote unquote, unable to get it. One of the things that shocked me is they told me that, you're good for at least 3 months. The problem is after that, some people have gotten it again, and what they don't know is if it's the same one that you had before, or if it is that you actually caught it again from somebody else. So I'm sitting here thinking to myself, well, then how safe does that make me if I'm exposing myself to people when I go back into work? Because I'm responsible for all my employees that I work with. I'm in business operations there, so I deal with all of our classified staff. All of my staff, including me, deal with our certified staff, which is our teachers, which there's the domino effect of that going back to the kids and their families. I'm responsible for my wife at home who works in a memory care facility, which are dealing with which is really at-risk people. So that kind of stuff all factors into my decisions. So I didn't end up going to see this in the theater for just the reason you're mentioning. I'm thinking about other people that my decision could potentially impact. And I think that's what's happening for a lot of people right now. What does a year from now look like? Fingers crossed. I'm hoping a lot better.
Yeah, I know, man. I don't know. It's one of those things where you're like, it's got to get better.
Yeah.
It will get better. Life will get better.
This was a great surprise.
Well.
But on a positive note, this was a great way to handle this because we needed something. And I would much rather them do this and give people something at Christmas when we all needed it. Because I felt like we needed this around that Christmas season this year. And this was the right kind of film for that. It's one of the reasons why I highlighted the fact that this wasn't a very dark movie. It isn't a dark movie. It's more fun and upbeat in its presentation. And I'm glad that it was. I'm glad that we got a chance to talk about this.
Yeah, me too.
You filthy criminals.
I would like to remind everyone about our show voicemail line. It's 1-440-388-4434 or drnorge on Skype. We love having you part of our show. RagingBullets@gmail.com is our email address. Feel free to send it in there. What I'm going to start doing before our episodes now is I'm going to post on our Facebook group a announcement thread that basically lists the upcoming content and gives people a vehicle to shoot some quick comments. I did it very quickly, very close, I should say, to our recording of this episode, but I just want to give people another chance if there's places where they want to shout out or get their comments in on the episode, because I love hearing other people's thoughts. It's one of the nice things about being part of a community is everyone has different thoughts or different, perspectives when they come into something and different experiences that are all valid. And we like having them part of our show. So consider doing it through the Facebook group as well. RagingBullets.com is our show website, and that's basically when you're going to find out about the new episodes. It feeds into Twitter. It feeds into our Facebook fan page. We are part of a wonderful, as I just mentioned, Facebook group community. And if you haven't joined one, it's a great community. Great way to find out news, reactions to anything that's happening in DC or upcoming in pop culture in general. It's a wonderful community of people. I shout out every episode because I believe in it. Jim and I are both on the PlayStation Network. I'm Raging_Bullets. You're Sensei_whatnot. I'm also Raging Bullets on the Xbox Live network as well. So I've got a Xbox Series X now, so if people want to reach me on there, you're more than welcome to. I'm also on a Switch. I'll put my friend's code in the show notes, so if you want to join me on the Nintendo Switch. And I'm on Pokemon Go, too, which I think you can find me through Facebook. I'm connected to a number of people that I've connected through the podcast community through these vehicles, so it's to me, it makes it more fun when you're connected with people that you know through this type of thing. So it's why I shout it out. We are sponsored this episode, of course, by DCB Service and InStockTrades.com. Jim, what is going on over at DCBService.com?
Infinite Frontier number 0, the one shot, 50% off, only $2.99, and Joker number 1, also 50% off, only $2.49. Thank you, DC Deals.
Over at InStockTrades.com, they've always got deals, and some of the new releases are Heroes in Crisis, The Price and Other Stories trade paperback, $19.99 regularly, 42% off, only $11.59. Under their bestsellers, they've got Batman: The Rise and Fall of the Batman Omnibus, and this collects Detective Comics, and it's a $150 omnibus regularly, $87 with that 42% off discount. This is a great way if you're looking for a chance to get deals. InStockTrades.com really does a great job of that, and they provide countless support to a wide variety of podcasts. So please consider sponsoring DCB Service and InStockTrades.com. We appreciate both companies. Our next episode, Jim and I are going to be taking a look at comics. And we want to talk about Dark Knight's Death Metal. We're going to talk about the conclusion of that, so that's going to be our opening segment. We're also going to talk about DCeased Dead Planet number 7, which is ending this coming week. Finally, we're going to talk about Future State Justice League, just as a chance to casually talk about some of the Future State characters that have had stories in other books and things like that. So that'll be our next episode. We will see you then.
Bye!
Strategery. What is that supposed to mean? That's a word that I have never seen. Do you exist? Strategery. Suddenly, I don't feel as smart as I used to be. I couldn't find it in a dictionary. Oh, what the heck is strategery? Why I need to know, I don't know, it's just my way. I asked a friend I know and they told me go away. Strategery. Maybe it's something that is wrong with me. I may need a pill from the pharmacy. Maybe that will cure my strategery. Why I need to know, I don't know. It's just my way. Just because I don't know, I'll just say it anyway. Strategery. A definition isn't meant to be, or at least one that I can see. I'm so confused. Strategery.